Yeah,
Good
that's what I'm
evening,
doing.
oh, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen on Wednesday, April 13th, 2022 at 5 p.m. We remain virtual due to COVID restrictions at this point. Um, Before we begin, because we are virtual, I need to call a roll call, and I will begin at the top. Joe Crisco is here. Beth Heller is here. Paul Kyriakos,
I'm here.
David Lober,
Here.
Sheila McCrevin,
Here.
David Vogel,
Present.
and Tony Genovese, our Administrative Officer, Director of Finance, is making an attempt to join us. Assistant Administrative Officer Betsy Agla
Here.
is here. Jerry Weiner is not here. He's absent this evening, excused, whatever the word is. And Jerry Shaw is here, our clerk, and media specialist Boo Ford is also recording us this evening. And with that, I will move to item 1, the first selectmen's report. I have some exciting news for all of you if you haven't heard. The state of Connecticut has awarded the town of Woodbridge $2 million to convert the old firehouse into a community center. This is a project we've been working on for a long time, and these state funds mean that the town will not have to borrow money to pay for the project. As we all know, the old firehouse has been used primarily for storage since it was damaged by a horrible fire in 2006. I am hopeful the construction will begin this summer. I will appoint a building committee to oversee the community center renovation project at our next meeting. We also plan to start construction on the senior center renovation, also paid for with state funds and that will begin this summer as well, we hope. The next building that desperately needs renovations in our town center is the center building. Our police department needs remodeling and upgrades to conform with state standards, and the rest of the building needs new heating, ventilation, and cooling, along with other upgrades. To investigate these needs and make recommendations, I'm appointing a center building renovation committee with Board of Finance member Dwight Rowland serving as chair, Police Chief Frank Cappiello, Police Commissioner Andy Esposito, Human Services Director Jeanette Glixman, and Board of Selectmen member Paul Kyriakos. As experience has shown, if we have a so-called shovel-ready project, I am then able to seek grant funding. I am hopeful that we will be able to fund all or some of this project with either state or even federal funding. Next week, the Board of Finance will present its proposed budget to the preliminary budget hearing. This will be on Monday, April 18th at 7:30 p.m. at the new firehouse at 100 Central Road in the Apparatus Bay. I thank our Volunteer Fire Association members for helping facilitate this meeting as we continue to try to limit residents' exposures to virus during the ongoing pandemic. Large gatherings all over the country and locally have recently resulted in many folks contracting COVID-19. I encourage all residents to attend and voice their opinions or ask questions. Following this hearing, the Board of Finance will make changes to the proposed budget, which will then be presented at the annual town meeting in May. All residents should have received a pamphlet in the mail with the meeting details and a budget summary on it. This pamphlet and the full budget details are available on our website, along with our new interactive online budget tool. This year's budget process was extremely challenging. Our budget crisis is caused by long-term revenue problem. If we don't grow and diversify our grand list soon, we will continue to face increasingly difficult budget decisions. New revenue is critical to fund our high-quality education and other important town services. The town could grow its grand list by expanding the commercial district and also offering new and diverse housing. We continue to explore ways to solve these issues. I'm excited tonight to hear from the consultant recommended to us by the 2030 task force. That group of volunteers was charged with growing our grand list. I look forward to learning more about their recommendations and how it could help us bring more vitality and more businesses to Woodbridge. I'm also appointing Chris Lovejoy to serve on the 2030 task force as one member has left. I'm appointing resident David Franklin to serve on the Ad hoc Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. This committee is working on a survey that will soon go out to all Woodbridge residents, hoping that data gathered from the survey will help direct their future work. They are also continuing their book discussion series, Mosaic, Woodbridge Reads in Community, with a discussion of minor feelings in Asian American reckoning in May. In your packet, you have a copy of a letter from Arbor Haven regarding the former Country Club of Woodbridge property proposal. At our last meeting, the Housing Committee requested, and we did agree, to table the discussion regarding development of the Country Club of Woodbridge. Arbor Haven has officially withdrawn their proposal at this time. We plan to put together a request for proposals for this property, and I hope that Arbor Haven might participate in that process along with other interested and qualified developers with any and all ideas. Since our last Board of Selectmen meeting, Tony and I have met with Dr. Budd, Woodbridge Board of Ed Interim Director of Business and Operations, Bridget Hewitt, and Woodbridge Board of Ed Chair, Lynn Piasek, for a monthly meeting. I also attended the Woodbridge Together Luminaria event on the anniversary of the pandemic-caused shutdown. It was a frigid but lovely evening and a wonderful way to remind ourselves of the importance of community, especially during difficult times. I attended the SCROG monthly meeting in late March. I also attended a meeting with Amity Superintendent Dr. Jen Byers, along with Bethany First Selectman Paula Cofrancesco. Tony, Betsy, and I hosted a meeting with the Department of Transportation Deputy Commissioner Mark Rolfe and members of his staff for an update on the Heroes Tunnel project and the Exit 59 project, and tried to ascertain timelines, which are still unfortunately only estimates. Betsy and I and Tony also met with our state legislative delegation and Department of Economic and Development Community Commissioner Lehman to discuss ways to continue to grow the town's grand list. Lindy Lee Gold of DECD and Martin Heft of the State Office of Policy and Management also joined the meeting. We have a meeting next week with a realtor who may have a biotech firm interested in the old Bayer building on Research Drive. And that's all the updates I have. And with that, I will move to item number 2 on our agenda. And I see Tony's joined us. Welcome. Woodbridge Board of Education Superintendent, Dr. Jonathan Budd. Welcome, Jonathan.
As usual for your time. School is on April vacation this week, but I did want to join you to comment on the budget calendar as it relates to the Board of Education. Since our last meeting, as you know, the Board of Finance has determined the preliminary budget for next fiscal year that will be presented at Monday night's preliminary budget hearing. I have presented to the Board of Education potential pathways to meet that preliminary budget number, and I'm confident that the excellence of Beecher Road School can continue with the support you and the Board of Finance have indicated today. Monday evening, Board of Education Chair Lynn Piasek will be present with me at the preliminary budget hearing. She and I will be prepared to answer any questions that may be asked by the public. Our Board of Education meeting is next Tuesday night, and as necessary, we will discuss then any outcomes from Monday night's preliminary budget hearing. Thank you very much for your ongoing support.
Thank you, Jonathan. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Budd? Go back to vacation.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for joining us and taking the time. Next on the agenda is the Woodbridge Center renovation with Silver Petroselli, and action is appropriate. I know Tony is going to lead part of this. We have, I believe, Jeanette Blixman as well joining us from the Senior Center, from the Human Services Department. And let's see, I see David Stein. I see Jeanette. Boy, everybody's popping in. So, hi, David. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So who would like to begin presentation? Tony, David, or Jeanette?
We can have David begin with a overview of the project and the budget.
Thank you.
Great. If I could have the ability to share my screen, I at least have a slide or two I'm happy to share.
I will also note Human Services Commissioner Chairman Susan Davison is with us as well. I just see her on the bottom of the screen here. So.
Okay. Be able to pull that up in a second. Okay, looks like that is there. Just give me a second. I just need to sort of move things around on my screen so I could see everybody. Perfect. So good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you. Again, my name is David Stein. I'm a principal with Silver Petroselli and Associates, been working with the team on this project for just a little over the past year. You may recall we were part of the early concept phases of this, and in the recent months we were working on the contract documents, and we are essentially complete with those, which include the project estimates that we have in front of you. Scope of work is a moderate renovation to the entire senior center. We are looking at, and I have some bullet points in which we are doing some space configurations to just kind of reorient the entryway into the space, such as the reception desk. We also are replacing all of the flooring along with the ceiling, and probably more importantly, which takes up a good part of the overall budget, is the improvements to the HVAC, the air conditioning, and the ventilation, which is a huge improvement to what currently exists right now. Most of your ventilation is really just taking place by opening up a windows, and that's really not practical in today, especially with COVID. We are very mindful of trying to get modern ventilation systems into there, and that's what this design has. We're also improving the lighting, replacing the ceilings, and just those overall finishes with just the functionality of new doors and cabinetry and so forth. It's going to make a huge improvement to the project. Our estimates as they stand right now, we have prepared sort of detailed itemized numbers looking at costs that are projected outward with the project starting fairly soon, of roughly about $514,000 that you see, plus a contingency line item. I want to point out that we're in a fairly unique time with fairly high rise and escalation of materials, but also a supply chain that's protracted. So the two are sort of colliding in a way that it's making it a little challenging to try to put an estimate to that. So you could see that we're well over a 10% design and an estimate contingency, even starting now, just based on those unpredictabilities. So based on that, we're projecting an overall project budget, including our design fees that were sort of locked in at the beginning of the project, at about a call it $610,000 overall budget. Time frame would be to go out to bid as soon as possible, lock in those materials. Mainly the HVAC is the one that's protracted. Most of the finishes, even doors, are somewhat reasonable. In the past, we would be at a 6 to 8 week lead time after materials are ordered. Some of those can range 12 to 14 weeks. So we'll manage that with the contractor once they have those orders in place, and be able to choose alternative materials if that's needed to be able to sort of pull the project back in terms of the overall timeline. There is a minor amount of asbestos removal that was recently discovered, but that all seems relatively manageable and most likely covered under the contingency. This being a renovation project, obviously you could only see what you could see, so that's why we need a healthy contingency, but it also needs to cover just the unpredictability of the market. So with that, happy to kind of turn it back over and answer any questions on the technical side.
I just want to make a few comments before there are questions. But when we originally did the budget for this project, the budget is approximately $430,000. And David, if you recall, that was when our HVAC, our air conditioning, was relatively modest, with a few some more modest HVAC work. That was sort of this COVID, right before COVID started, is when we acquired a lot of the funding for this project. So since then, the HVAC has turned into something a lot more significant with ventilation. And so the request for this evening is really to get the board's support in putting in the budget document, in the preliminary budget, which will have to be acted on by the Board of Finance, funding through ARPA to be able to complete this project with the required ventilation. The current shortfall is about $190,000. although the HVAC work is much more than that. David, do you have an estimate on the HVAC portion of this project?
Yeah, the HVAC portion takes up about a third of the overall, a bit more than a third of the overall budget plus lighting. So the mechanical, electrical, plumbing piece is almost half of what we are, half of what we are doing. And that's really the difference. Our original number that we started with was about $80,000 worth of mechanical work. And we've definitely doubled that or more, because we were just planning on simple air conditioning and not having ventilation, which requires ductwork and so forth.
So and there was a letter sent out to the board from Jeanette and Mary in the Human Services Commission, which you received. It was in your package again this month. And so that's really the nature of the presentation, and just to get the board up to date on the project. And so now if there's any questions, we can certainly answer those. As part of the ARPA funding, we have to, the funding has to be approved, as would any appropriation of this magnitude or this type in your town process. So a capital expenditure of this type in our would have to go to a special town meeting or some sort of a town meeting, which is why we wanted to put this in the budget so that it can go to the annual town meeting as part of our budget process. That's really the issue. That's really the reason for the sort of doing this on a little more, doing this differently than the other ARPA projects that we've contemplating.
I guess I'll ask, anybody have any questions from the board or selectmen for David, Jeanette, or Tony at this point?
I did have a question about energy use. Obviously, this is a very important addition for the senior center and for that space. Having air conditioning and especially filtration in this day and age, very important. But can you tell us a little bit more about the energy consumption that we should expect from this? Are we using any kind of green energy? What's the system going to draw its energy from?
Well, because we're now able to heat and cool off of the same unit, you're going to be much more efficient than what you currently have. Right now, you have little air conditioning, so there's not much energy being consumed because you don't have much air conditioning within the space, and you're relying passively on just the windows itself. So you're going to be consuming more energy just by the nature of that. The system or the units are extremely efficient. But overall, I think the message is now that you are sort of consolidating the heating and the cooling into one unit, that's very efficient. In terms of alternative energy, you have the options, and we've sort of explored that on just a general level. As I hear, you're going to be looking at exploring further renovations to that building system, because we did look at that. It's fairly antiquated right now. So this being mainly electric, you have the possibility of solar in the future, which would obviously make sense for the units that we have right now.
So am I correct in understanding that what we choose to go forward with now will be able to hook into a larger initiative once we get the funding for that? We'll be able to just sort of plug and play?
Yeah, because your main electrical infrastructure will need to be reworked anyway. We are tying into that existing piece. So yes, to use the word plug and play in a general sense is correct.
Okay, and this project doesn't have any heating element at all, even though it's HVAC. We're not running the heat through the ducts?
No, we can. Yes, we can. So we're able to, that's where the efficiency comes into play. So we really can, because in the future, you're going to want to come offline with your old hot water and boiler perimeter system. So this,
I'm looking forward to that.
So this allows you to be also a bit more independent of the central system.
Excellent. Thank you.
Beth, can I comment?
Absolutely.
Thank you. First, I want to say thank you for reviewing this tonight. And then second, this is a once in 40 years kind of renovation, and we want to get this right for the seniors in that population. So, we've looked at the highest MERV filtration we can to make sure that we're getting the smallest of the viruses, to keep that population more healthy. And in that, it's a first step toward a more green building, to do higher filtration. And additionally, we'll have smart thermostats. So when I ran a blood drive recently and they worried we had windows, doors, fans, everything we could, but the heat in this building previously has either been on or off. And we could not control the amount of heat and almost lost the blood that had been collected because it was so hot in the building. Again, that's a huge savings to be able to control how much heat is offered. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at this building with the windows wide open in the middle of winter because it's so hot here with the heat on. So I did want to just point out what a savings it is to be able to control the heating, and cooling in the building. And if anyone's been in the senior center in the middle of summer, everyone has flannel shirts on. So, you don't want to cool it too much, and we never do.
Thank you, Jeanette.
Sure.
Anyone else from the board?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. There's been a flooding issue at the center. Has that been addressed in this proposal?
I can talk to what has been done so far, speak
Yep.
about what's been done so far. Brad has, our building maintenance department has been on this. He has looked at the drainage from we have a catch basin right outside the ramp, and he's followed the flow using dye to find the catch basin on the other side of the police department. He has scoped that to make sure that the wastewater pipe or pipes, drainage pipes, are all clear and free of debris, as well as without any breaks in them. And most recently, he has had someone come in to camera the lines. With that said, he's also discovered that the bottom of the door that leads to the ramp entrance has what looks like a feathered bottom. It is really not a solid bottom there, and he's going to be investing in a better barrier there. And there are other ideas in motion. Silver Petroselli had their civil engineer, look at it. And so there are some recommendations. As it stands, that is not part of the scope of this project because it is additional funds.
Okay. And then I had a technical question for Mr. Silver. Are we going to have heat and cooling reclamation capabilities in this new system? So the fresh air is heated and cooled as it comes in, and we don't lose as much of the conditioned air?
The ventilated, the outside air that's brought in is tempered. So there is a portion of outside air that is tempered and then obviously exhausted. This is a fairly simple system in terms of the way that it is, it is designed and zoned, but extremely efficient. We chose the most energy efficient package that would go along with this. So to answer your question, are there ERVs or such as part of this? There is a small energy recovery, and then the outside air is tempered as that's brought in.
Is this a heat pump application, or is this different?
Yes, it's a heat pump style. Correct. Yes.
Right. Thank you.
Yep. Electrically driven. Yep.
Anyone else? Okay. Tony, I just would ask you, what do you need from the board this evening? A motion to move this forward?
Yeah, to recommend to, it would be helpful to have a motion to recommend to add to our capital budget. The amount we had in the request was $275,000. I would say that that's a sort of a not to exceed amount. and that we would only use what we needed for the HVAC portion of the project.
Okay. So with the board's permission, I'll make that motion not to exceed 275,000 as Tony
Using,
stated.
using ARPA.
ARPA funds, correct, right. Anything else I think to add to that? Not? Is there a second?
Second.
David Vogel. Okay. Any other comments or questions at this point on this matter? I don't think anybody has any. I'm trying to watch the screen carefully. Okay, with that, I will call the roll. David Vogel,
Aye.
Sheila McCrevin,
Aye.
David Lober,
Aye.
Paul Kirikos,
Aye.
Beth Heller, aye, and Joe Crisco. Okay, I think Joe said aye. Yep, okay, great. Thank you. Thank you all for the due diligence on all of this, and it'll be wonderful once it's done. Okay,
Beth?
thanks, Jeanette and David Stein and Susan.
Beth, could I say just one thing?
Sure.
I
Go
just
for it.
unmuted myself. I agree with all that Jeanette had to say. And this has been a long time in coming. I've been on the Human Services Commission for a long time, and it's very exciting to see this project. And I thank you and the entire board for supporting this. And as we move forward, it's very exciting. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Back at you. All the work you guys have put into this to bring this to this point. It's collaboratively, completely with us. Thank you. Okay, thanks, guys. With that, we move on to make sure I don't skip something. We're up to Regional Water Authority. Jeanette will stay for this one. Proposal for a water line, Ms. Womer and Ms. Glixman. And you have in your packet, let me just turn the page here. Materials regarding this. This is the Regional Water Authority Dog Park, another collaboration of effort to bring something wonderful again to our town. So maybe Jeanette, you'd like to take this one. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much. And thank you to Jerry Shaw and Beth for putting these two issues back to back. Much appreciated. Mary Beth is here. I see her name. I don't see a picture, but she said she'd be on her phone. Mary Beth is the current president of the Woodbridge Dog Park Cooperative.
She's in now. I just saw her pop up. I can see. Hello.
Oh, there she is.
She's in her car.
I serve on the board as the liaison to the town. Mary Beth apologizes, but she's in Florida.
Yeah.
But she's joined us here
boy.
tonight. We were approached, as you can see in your packet, with this proposal, and both Mary Beth and I are here to answer any questions. Should you have any, please let us know if there's anything we can help direct.
Thank you. Hopefully the Board of Selectmen has read the packet. It's a 2-page memo from you. And basically, it's just there's no potable water, as you know, at the Fitzgerald, and there will be no cost to the town of Woodbridge for this project. Let's see, I'll just make a quick summary. There will be no interruption to Beecher residents when the line is tapped. And the dog park is going, the dog park cooperative, I can't forget, will be taking care of the monthly water bill and all of the costs. And you could see a picture of the hydrant, I guess it's called. Okay. Yes. So does anyone have any questions for Jeanette or Mary Beth this moment from the board?
Yeah, Jeanette, I just have some clarification. So my understanding is this water is coming from Beecher Road, going across underneath the track, probably going through the cornfield and then across the track again, and then into the dog park area. No? Okay, that's what a clarification I want.
Yes, so I drew a little map, but you have to forgive me because I am not David Stein. So it literally is across the grassy area along Beecher Road Beecher Road, along the road, under the track, across the field, and outside the dog park. If any of you have strolled by, there's a very large sign, and it sort of is placed at an angle to the entrance to the dog park. And right near that sign probably 3-4 feet close to that sign, not crossing any other pathways, the hydrant will be placed.
Okay, and the disruption will be approximately 2 days, is that the estimate?
What we were told is 100% will be 2 days of construction, only 1 day with a disruption to that particular pathway. So cones will be set up and people can walk in any, you've been there, you
Right,
you
sure,
walk
sure,
any
yeah.
number of figure eights all over the place, but you won't be able to walk right there it just for safety's sake. They're digging a trench.
What about the impact on traffic on Beecher Road?
Should be fine. I'm sure they come with their own trucks that can park along the grassy area. And so I've seen other work there. I think even the track meets that go there all the time are certainly more of an interruption than anything they'll do.
Yeah,
We can address it with them should you ask us to.
is there a manhole there, or will they have to dig up the pavement?
So in tapping, the water line is right next to the edge. So anything that they get to when they tap the line, it's anything that they do, they'll patch.
Okay,
Yeah, and it's literally a meter vault that they place under the grass.
okay. Thank you.
Sure.
So,
Any other questions? David Vogel.
yeah, so the plan is that anyone can just then use this pump to access fresh water, drinking water, whatever it is.
That's the plan. Any walker, any picnicker, any bird watcher, any dog park member, not even member, visitor, are welcome to. And again, it's potable water, so it's for drinking.
And how will that be secured from vandalism, for example? Let's say somebody just turns it on at night and lets it run.
Right. We're in discussions about this frost-free yard hydrant does lock. So we're kind of discussing the best means to do that. We haven't got it nailed down yet because it takes volunteers to lock things and unlock things. And that's what we're all about. So once that's coordinated, I'm sure I can come back and address that with the board.
Thank you.
These exist, Adam told me we have similar things at some of our fields already. So, he's got them in use in Woodbridge. So he's got some good advice for us.
Anyone else have any questions for Jeanette or Mary Beth? Hearing none. Okay. Someone like to make a motion? Would you like me to make the motion? Approve this as presented. I'll make that motion. Do I need any, I guess as the packet presents, so we don't have to go over all the pieces. Do I need anything else in this motion? Okay.
Excuse me, Beth, is this to be referred for at 8:24?
Thank you very much. Forgot about that part. Yes, see, that's, and the motion will also state, we checked with Jerry Weiner, who's away at the moment, but he said, and we checked with Chris Sullivan as well, and they both agreed that it probably should just go for an 8:24 TP&Z, and they're meeting in a couple of weeks at the beginning of May. So my motion will have a clarification that pending approval of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission. Is there a second? Thanks, Joe. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. Joe Crisco. Beth Heller, aye. Paul Kyriakos.
Aye.
David Lober.
Aye.
Sheila McCrevin.
Aye.
And David Vogel.
Aye.
Thank you. Oh, this is wonderful. Thanks to everyone for putting this forward. It's a good thing.
It's very exciting.
Yep. Thanks again for all your work on this one too.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, and with that, we're up to number 5, Eversource presentation. Let me just see here. Transmission line vegetation management. I know David Lober remembers the days when Eversource came through several years ago when he was on the Board of Selectmen to do some vegetation management, which ended up being to me look like clear cutting of logs, etc. So it was a big issue at the time for several neighborhoods. And when I got a memo a few weeks ago from them saying they were planning to do similar and more vegetation management, I thought it was important that I met with them, with Betsy and Tony, and then I know that the board probably has some questions as well. It would be important that the board knows where and when and how this is all going to happen, since we will hear from the residents if it isn't working well, number one. And number two, in your packet, we did receive, and I hope you got this, the Eversource folks got this, a letter with some questions from the Conservation Commission, which you could be prepared to answer. And I know Dr. Lober is our liaison, so he could follow along with that and make sure they get answered. And also Ms. McCrevin from the Board of Selectmen had some other things to add to the packet. So with that, I will turn it over to, I'm sorry, let me just see your name if it's listed here. Dan Burns.
Hi, thank you. Good evening. And we also have on the call today Sean Redding, who's the manager with vegetation management, and our arborist who's covering this project, John. We could unmute Sean and John. We can, if you'd like, I can share the presentation that we presented in February.
That would probably be good for the public who are tuning in. The Board of Selectmen has a copy of it in their packet.
Okay. Okay. Not sure if we have Sean on yet.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to say good evening and thank you for allowing Eversource to present to the board and the members and the town at large. We wanted to review this maintenance project that we have planned that part of it goes through Woodbridge. So Eversource, as a transmission operator, we conduct removal and management of incompatible vegetation along our transmission lines to help ensure reliable power. Incompatible vegetation is most commonly tall growing species that could impact the power line, the transmission lines, which then could affect many customers, not only in Woodbridge, but in that entire region. More extensive clearance is required around transmission lines to prevent power interruptions for tens of thousands of customers because of the design of them, the voltage of them, as compared to the lines that deliver power down your street to your homes and to your businesses. Next slide, Dan. So there are multiple lines that run through Woodbridge that have different voltages. And because of the width of the right-of-way, we implement what we call a two-zone management technique. So there's the area directly underneath and adjacent to the lines, which we call the wire zone. And depending on the voltage, it's either 25 feet or 35 feet from the outside conductor. And there we manage vegetation to retain low-growing vegetation that's under 15 feet when it gets to mature height, and remove taller growing species so it can't interfere with the transmission of the electric line. Outside of that, we have what we call the border zone. This is an area out, depending on the right-of-way, a certain distance where we can allow taller vegetation up to 25 feet to exist and remain, and again, removing taller species that grow above that 25 feet tall at mature height. In this particular project, because of the critical nature and voltage of these lines, we're looking to expand that traditionally cleared zone, expanding that and getting some additional right-of-way cleared. And what we are looking to clear to is either the edge of the easement or approximately 100 feet from that outside conductor. And this is to remove current and future risks of tall growing vegetation that is currently there from falling and causing an interruption to those lines. Next slide, please, Dan. So what we are looking to avoid in clearing underneath the wire zone and the border zone to the outside of the wires is to prevent trees from growing in and causing disruptions to power. This particular project where we are expanding that clearance zone is also looking to address the issues of those tall growing trees along the edge that could fall or fail and come in contact with the lines and cause a power disruption. Our approach to this is to only remove, when necessary, those incompatible tall growing trees and leave the lower compatible vegetation, and over time to convert this right of way into a low growing shrubby grass habitat with small trees, shrubs, grasses that helps reduce the volunteer species that may come in through birds or just through seed dispersal that naturally happens. In this area, New England and Connecticut, the dominant environment habitat is woods or forest, and so we try to arrest that development of those trees by managing the trees when they're in smaller size, so we can help develop that low-growing plant community. Next slide, please, Dan. So this is a overhead shot of the planned route, which is our conventional right-of-way that runs north to south through Woodbridge. This is the existing right-of-way that is out there that this project includes. Next slide, please, Dan. So most of our right-of-way runs through an easement on property. That easement gives us the ability to build and maintain those transmission lines, as well as manage this vegetation management. But understanding that there is property owners that this easement runs over, we have increased our efforts to make sure that they are informed and aware of what's happening on this project and on their property. We have begun with sending out a letter in late December, which should have arrived in either late December or early January, to all the property owners along this right of way where the work is going to be happening. And in May, we're going to be beginning direct outreach to property owners along this right of way, talking to them, informing them about what's happening specifically on their property, what work is planned to be done and how it's going to be done. So we've already begun with letters, and then we're going to be doing either in-person meetings, or if the particular property owner is at home, leaving a door hanger with information on how to contact us, so that we can either inform them over the phone or on their property, go through their property and discuss specifically what vegetation may remain and what needs to be removed, and identifying any issues or questions that they might have and addressing those at that time before any of the work is to begin. We have previously sent out surveyors who have delineated the edge of the easement or the new clearing limit that we are seeking. If any of those have deteriorated or fallen off or been removed, we can always have survey go out to re-identify those lines to make sure that we are working within our easement. Next slide, Dan. So this is an overview of our current schedule. We, as discussed, we have briefed and met with the first select person regarding this project. Property owner outreach, as I mentioned, started with a letter back in December, and then we'll begin in-person one directly to each property in the beginning of May. And then up on that outreach. Once it has been completed, then we will begin the actual tree work starting May, late May to June. And then depending on the timing of the work on that particular property and where appropriate, we will begin restoration and mitigation planting as appropriate for each property, depending on the impact that occurred there on their property with the vegetation that was removed.
So just to jump in here quick, this slide is slightly outdated. It's from the February presentation. We did have to adjust our schedule a little bit. We are going to be starting our door-to-door outreach in May, and then most likely our contractor will start the work in the beginning or mid-July.
Okay.
The schedule is down a little bit.
Next slide, please, Dan. So, as we've mentioned, we have a robust team of our project services specialist, Dan Burns, who is on this presentation. That is his contact information. The supervisor, Kathy Ferrier, who could not make it this evening, is the supervisor for vegetation management transmission for Connecticut. And then John Pagano is on the line. Also, he is going to be the arborist, the Eversource arborist overseeing this project. But if anybody has a question or comment or concern, we do have a vegetation management contact phone number that a message can be left and we'll respond back, as well as an email that goes directly to our transmission vegetation management team, which we will then respond back to all inquiries or questions. And I just want to thank you again for allowing us to present. And at this time, we can take any questions.
Thank you. I'll open it up to the board.
Yeah, so I have some questions here, some things I hope you can clarify. The first question I have is, what exactly is the distance from the wires to the right-of-way? Now, it's supposed to be 100 feet, but I heard kind of an addition to that, which was kind of vague. So how far out are you planning on going? What's the limit you can go out?
So it depends on the property. The easements are specific to each property, and they do vary. It's not always a straight line. So it does vary property to property, and it also depends on where specifically the lines are within the right-of-way. So the clearing that we're looking to do is either through that edge of that easement, which we have had done, which we've had survey done on to identify, or out 100 feet from the line if the edge of the easement is farther than that.
So you're saying that some of these lines actually go through people's properties? Is that my understanding?
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Okay. The second question I have had to do with identifying the trees which are going to be taken down. I know one of the problems they had last time was that there were a lot of surprises for homeowners who found that their properties were basically, decimated, and that caused a lot of animosity, and it also cost you folks a lot of money, and we need to avoid that this time. So I read that you were going to tag these trees. You're going to tag the ones to be removed with red tags and the ones to be trimmed with yellow tags. Is that still the plan?
The plan is not to go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to jump in and say, we'll communicate with the property owners the designation of the color. Typically, the easement limit is flagged out by our surveyors in orange. And then a lot of times, particularly in yards, if a tree needs to be removed, we'll communicate with our property owner what color flagging we are going to use to designate that tree for removal, or if they request flagging on trees, vegetation that is to be preserved, we can communicate that as well.
Okay, so now what recourse does the landowner have if they don't want that particular piece of vegetation removed? Do they get a vote or not really?
Well, we like to have a conversation with them on a case-by-case basis. Depending on the impact, we work with them, potentially with a planting mitigation plan. But we try to work as best we can with them. And obviously, we have our specifications we need to meet. So, but to the point where we can engage in a dialogue and try to come to some resolution, we try our best to do.
Right. The other big question is about supervision. I don't know whether it was true or not, but the homeowners felt that the cutting crew came in and they just cut whatever they felt that needed to be cut. And they cut things which were either not in the right of way or too far away or, not intended to be cut. So what kind of supervision are you going to have on site for those people?
Sure. So I wasn't involved in that 2019 project, but since that time, we've done a restructuring in our program. We have added quite a bit more staff, so we have dedicated outreach personnel for this project, and we also have dedicated field oversight. For each section that we're going to perform work in, we go out and we do a pre-clearing review with the contractor. So we'll have a arborist at that meeting, the contractor, environmental staff, and the outreach staff as well. And we go through span by span and go over each commitment we've made with the property owner and any sort of environmental restrictions as well. And that is all signed off. So, and then while the work is being performed, we also have field oversight out in the field overseeing the contractor.
Okay, so every cutting crew is going to have supervision when they're working. Is that my understanding?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, all right. And there was another question about access roadways to the transmission lines. That's going to be different than the vegetation clearing. In other words, you need to have clear pathways to get to the towers.
Yeah, so part of our project setup is reviewing with our rights and permits group, and sorry about my camera facing the wrong way previously, is reviewing where we have those off right-of-way access, the way which we travel to get onto the right-of-way. And those are all reviewed, and any that are known and exist, they are relayed to our contractors as part of that walk down that Dan just discussed, and monitored by the oversight personnel that's on while the crews are doing the work.
Okay, so are you planning on using relatively clear areas for those access roads to spare significant trees, or are you just going to put them, wherever you want them?
Oh, so we're not constructing any roads.
Well, pathways, not roads, pathways.
Yeah.
Access pathways. Yeah.
Yeah. So it will be, much of this work will be done with equipment that will be traveling over and through the right of way. So we will be accessing those from either public roadway crossings or existing viable off right of way access through people's properties that we have as part of our easement.
Okay, so are those going to be mapped out and made available to homeowners as well?
We can definitely share the access routes. Obviously, some of our project mapping has confidential information, but we can explain the access routes and what the impacts the equipment may or may not have.
Yeah, because people don't want these access roads or pathways across their property if they can be from public roads and then run parallel to the transmission lines.
And I also should add, in a maintained yard type of situation, we're going to limit any equipment use or use the right equipment to avoid any impacts there. In more, I guess, wooded areas, there may be mechanical equipment going through established access roads, but the contractor will utilize the right equipment for the right location.
And if you damage those properties, are you committed to restoring them? In other words, if you run equipment over people's lawns and you form ruts and things like that, are you committed to restoring those properties?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. I don't think I have any more questions. I think you've answered most of it or all of it.
Okay, thank you. Sheila?
Yeah, I just had a couple of things I wanted to maybe get a little more clarification about. You mentioned the sort of informal
Yes.
process by which if a property owner, a budding property owner had an objection, ideally, they come to you with that objection and you guys say, yes, of course, we'll do exactly that, ideally. But what happens, is there a formal objection process that they can take with PURA if they do not agree with what you try to work out with them?
So, as I mentioned, the work is an easement, which is part of the property records, which allows us to perform this work. So if the property owner is not in agreement with our scope of work, they would need to involve legal process to work that out.
Is that the process that's laid out by PURA? PURA? There's an objection process?
PURA has jurisdiction over the distribution.
Okay, so it's not the same for these lines.
That's right. These are transmission lines, and they do not have any jurisdiction. The only jurisdiction that PURA would have is if a tree in question is on overhanging the public roadway or public property, town property, and the process for getting the permit for it would go through the tree warden. And if they did not agree with that work, then the Eversource could appeal that to PURA for review, and that's from a state statute under the tree warden section.
Okay, so that was actually my next question, was about how the tree warden might factor into this. So I think what I'm hearing you say is if it's town-owned property and the tree warden says, no, I want to see this or I want to see that, then they have a role to play.
Yes, for trees overhanging the public roadway. I don't know specifically in Woodbridge if they also have the jurisdiction over park property or other town property. Depending on the town, it could be the Parks Department or DPW person, but in general, it's the towns are on public roadways or public property that the tree warden has jurisdiction, and we'd be required to get a permit.
Okay, so separate from private property. And then I had a question about the diagram that you showed. I don't know if you can put it back up on the screen or not.
Share that again.
Yeah, because you talked about 2 zones and then you added a 3rd zone. So I just wanted to make sure that I understand what you're going to do in that 3rd zone, because it was labeled how high you would allow a tree to be in the main wire zone and then the 2nd zone, but it wasn't labeled as far as I could see. What exactly are you doing there? Are you completely clear cutting that furthest zone?
Well, it depends on what is currently existing in that area. So it is effectively an expansion of that border zone. So that would mean that we may leave, depending on specific location and the discussion with the property owner, trees that mature less than 25 feet tall. In many locations, there may or may not be tree species that mature less than 25 feet tall. There may be mostly taller growing species of trees like oak and maple, the typical trees we see around Connecticut. But it's really an expansion of the border zone.
So just so I understand from this diagram, at what height are your wires on these poles?
They vary. So the lines are designed and the structures are far apart that there is a natural sag of the lines from structure to structure. So it does vary. And they're also engineered in such a way that as the load or voltage increases on those, the lines are designed to actually expand and sag, get lower. So that's what we have to take into account. So like there's not an exact height for the wires. It varies from structure to structure based on the distance and what voltage is running through those lines at that time.
I guess what I'm confused by with the graphic is at the very furthest away from the poles, you've got trees that if you were to knock them down, they're not coming anywhere near your wire. So is it just that this is not graphically representing the proper heights of things?
It may not be. It's just to represent the additional clearing, not necessarily what height of trees.
Right. But so, for example, you said 25 feet. What if there's a tree that's 45 feet? Are you going to take the top 20 feet off, or are you taking it all the way down at the ground?
We remove it completely. We do not top tree.
Okay. So you could have like a 100-foot tree, but even if it fell over, it wouldn't hit the line because it's further than that away, but you're still taking it down in that furthest out right of way. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Just so that homeowners are going to be aware that that's going to happen. And I think I heard you say that you're going to tag the trees that are going to be removed, or you're just going to be tagging the line that you're going to be proceeding through.
The easement, part of the discussion with each property owner would if at that time would defer all the trees that are going to be removed. We will. We don't do that, if you will, proactively.
So I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit there. Is the expectation that you're going to mark a line and then you're going to tell the property owner everything on this side of the line is going? Or will it be individual trees?
A tall, growing, greater than 25 feet at maturity tree, we are going to be looking to remove those. And we can have that discussion with the property owner. And if it helps them understand what needs to be done, then we will tag the trees on their property.
And what you're saying is your right of way, legal right of way on that property allows you to take down the trees.
That's correct.
Okay, well, as long as property owners have an opportunity to understand it before it happens, I think you'll have less trouble than if someone comes home from work one day and finds a lot of things missing that they didn't realize were going to be taken.
Thank you. Anyone else from the board? There is also, I hope the folks from Eversource received the comments from the Conservation Commission Chair, and I will encourage Tim Austin, the chairman, to reach out to you guys if that's okay with you to get those questions answered. And
sure, absolutely.
That'd be great. So anyone else from the board have anything to add or ask? Okay, thank you for joining us this evening. We appreciate the input. Keep in touch.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
we appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
And with that, not too bad, 6:04. We're now, I hope, we're at public comment at this point. Gary, do you have any, first of all, written comments that we need to have read?
No, none have come in to me.
Okay, thank you. I'm assuming there's some folks that would like to do public comment in person or actually virtually, live and in person with us.
Yes, I'll be bringing them on in a moment.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, I have brought on Mary Gorham and Kent Golden.
Okay. I would ask, hi guys. I would ask you to please be brief as we have a large agenda this evening. A couple minutes would be helpful. And also, please, before you begin speaking, state your name and address for the record, please. So whichever one wants to start, I'll let you guys duke that part out.
Ken, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? I don't hear Ken.
Kent, I think you're muted, Kent. It's okay. Wonders of being in a box.
Well, let's try that. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we can. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
great. Okay, so hello, I'm Kent Golden, for the record, 16 Old Still Road. And I'd like to comment on the former country club property. My wife and I are longtime residents, and I served on the Woodbridge Sustainability Committee here in town. And a fun fact, my grandfather was also the president of the Woodbridge Country Club many years ago. So this is a cause that is near and dear to me for multiple reasons. Now, I know the board is trying to do the best that they can in order to make good decisions on the fate of this property, the budget, and also the affordable housing guidelines from the state. So I want to thank you all very much for your work in these areas. But like many other residents, I'm a little concerned about the housing proposals that are being entertained as our only option to address these areas, especially since the property was almost specifically purchased to prevent development in this way. So what is the motivation for these proposals? It will obviously bring in one-time funds with the sale of the property and then some subsequent tax revenue. But surely you can recognize that adding new houses and people to the town will increase the demand on town resources, such as schools, police, public works, etc. All those things that are currently driving our budget to be strained. Now, I know the proposals often paint a rosy picture of only a handful of kids entering the school system, but I think that ignores the reality that the majority of people who will be moving to Woodbridge will be moving here specifically for the school system here. It's really our biggest draw. So to ignore that is to ignore reality. So these funds will help in the short term, I'm sure, but will unfortunately not pan out in the long term. Now, I know the board is, excuse me, also very interested in working towards the guideline from the state for the 10% affordable housing in town. Now, this is a worthy goal, and we should absolutely explore how to make progress in this area. But because the guideline is a percentage, if we're adding a bunch of expensive homes and only a handful of affordable homes, the goalpost for hitting the 10% gets moved further away. So you could do the math on this by adding all of that housing that we were looking at in the Arbor Haven proposal. We would have increased the grand total of affordable housing in town by a whopping 8. So if we want significant affordable housing, let's get some proposals that really make an impact. And I would suggest that doing so in the Flats area would make more sense so that residents who live there can walk to the shops and the restaurants and public transport and not be isolated in the unwalkable area where the country club property is. Lastly, we have the environmental impact, and there's just no way to avoid it. New construction is incredibly harsh to the environment with tons of asphalt, concrete, plastic, and energy used, and it will have a huge negative impact to the wildlife in this location. So I'm glad that you've been looking at proposals and thinking about how best to use the property. But again, I have to question why the only options being presented are for dense housing. I think most residents are opposed to this and would rather keep it as either open space or a park. But in your defense, I think it's also a hard sell to the board and anyone who looks at our budget numbers for us to simply absorb the $7 million+ that we paid for the property without generating any revenue. So the housing is tempting for this reason. So as many of you know, I am proposing an alternative plan that would allow us to keep a lot of the open space and generate significant revenue for the town without the downsides of housing, which is to create a solar park. Now, the proposal that the town obtained a few years ago back for a solar installation would have generated $23 million over 25 years. So we're talking very significant revenue, but that proposal was to cover the entire property with panels, which is not the best use of the land. So I am advocating that we get a new solar proposal for something like a 50-50 split of open space and solar. This would keep a lot of the natural space and still bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars every year without all the downsides and back-end costs of housing. There's also the added bonus that this is actually beneficial for the planet and our environment in a huge way. It would be a great PR bump for the town. The land has already been cleared of trees and has access to 3-phase power. The town would not have to purchase or maintain the panels, and we would still own the property. The panels could even be removed in the future if we really want to. So it's really a win-win scenario. So in closing, I am formally asking you to approve getting an RFQ and subsequent RFP to get new proposals for a solar park on a portion of that property. This is the kind of proposal that we should be looking at, and I urge you to get things rolling with a motion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. We usually don't respond to public comment, so that's I'm not ignoring you. It's just we don't. And with that, I'll turn to Mary.
Hi. Let's see. Can you see me? Oh, there we go. Yeah. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but not see you. But that's
Oh,
okay.
okay. Well, let's see. How do I get the camera on here? Video. Can you see me now? Start video. Okay.
There you are. Yes, we can see you now.
Okay, great. Good evening. So I'm just going to underscore what Kent did and talk about some other aspects of this.
Mary, if you could
my
just state your name and address. I'm sorry.
Sure. My
Thank
name
you.
is Mary Gorham, and I've been living at 21 Old Mill Road in Woodbridge for over 23 years. And I emailed all of you on the Board of Selectmen a long letter yesterday, and I'm here this evening to highlight my concluding recommendation that we not sell the country club property, but instead create a large solar farm on the east half of that property toward the Merritt Parkway, which has two very large open fields, one on the right and one on the left of the clubhouse. In addition to this solar park, I propose we create a lovely park on the Johnson Road side, which is on the other side of the ridge that runs north-south down the center of the property for our entire community to enjoy. Here's why. Preliminary estimates are that a solar farm on half of the country club property could generate as much as $500,000 per year, every year, potentially forever, in revenues to the town without any of the expenses to the town that new housing implies. Solar panels do not have children in the schools. They do not use our library, police, fire, town hall, or roads. We could lease the solar panels, and in so doing, the town would not need to spend a dime to get them, install them, or maintain them. We also would not need to sell the land. Should we need to use the property for something else in 25 years, we would retain that option. By using removable structures that do not mar the landscape with concrete, we could ask the solar company to take them away at the end of their income generation, and the land would not be ruined. With the revenues from a solar farm, we could pay for the remaining debt on the country club property and the maintenance of a lovely park on the Johnson Road side. Future revenues from the solar farm could also pay for more affordable senior housing in the business district without building more market rate housing. In so doing, we could make real progress on our affordable housing goals. Lastly, and very importantly, a solar farm would help our town do its part in weaning our dependence on fossil fuels and increase our use of renewable energy and decentralized energy generation. As the latest IPCC report tells us, we need to move away from fossil fuels quickly in order to avert the worst effects of climate change. A large solar park in our town would enable our town to do its part and be a renewable energy leader in the state. The need for this cannot be overstated. To explore this solar farm option further, I urge you to put out a request for qualifications, i.e. an RFQ, to solar companies now so that we can talk to them informally and educate ourselves further about solar farm possibilities. Once we have done so, we can then write a much more informed RFP later. There are many issues we should be more up to speed about first, such as expected revenues, leasing agreement options, siting and safety concerns, battery storage options, environmental matters, etc., so that our RFP will be written in a way that results in proposals that will meet the town's needs. Let's educate ourselves first through the RFQ process. Thank you for your consideration, and I am happy to assist you in this reconnaissance work if needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary.
You're welcome.
Jerry, are there any other folks that want to do public comment? I'm sorry, Jerry. Anybody see anything?
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's
No,
okay.
the other people that are in attendance are going to be presenters.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. That's great. Moving on, item 7 is liaison reports, and I'll start with Joe Crisco. Joe, you have to unmute, my friend. Not yet. There you go.
You got me?
Yep.
Okay. Press the right key.
Yeah.
I attended a Board of Police Commissioners special meeting this past Monday and give a brief summary in regards to the financial reports. 3/4 of the way, the police department is on target, about 73%. The chief also gave an activity report to regards to various, activity, criminal arrests, etc., fraud. Um, they also announced that they are participating in a ballistic vest donation. Ballistic vests are being decommissioned and sent to Ukraine along with medical supplies. He talked about different JAG grant awards that they'll be coming. A coffee with a cop event yesterday, and announced that there were 2 members of the department that participated in the Connecticut Special Olympics Penguin Fund. In regards to personnel matters, he identified some hiring, promotion with a sergeant. There were 2 resignations, and he also has approved dispatcher and officer hiring for the future. And also there was an officer recognition, Officer Capasso, who did a great job in regards to an unconscious person due to drugs and helped that. He also referred to our budget meeting on the 18th and then discussed the Woodbridge Traffic Authority. There are various events like the Bethwood Baseball Opening Day, and there will be road closures for that. There's a Ride for Hope charity approval, and there's the annual Woodbridge Road Race, and that was approved. And there were other different programs, and speed limits and signs put up, and that was their activity for that day. Thank you.
Okay, that's it. Okay, thanks, Joe. Paul Kirikos.
Okay, so the EDC Commission met on the 7th of April, and Robert is going to talk with the TPZ Commission about incentivized zoning for our town, hopefully to bring in some revenue. The business district will be holding a happy hour of sorts, I think in May. Is that right, Betsy?
That's the goal.
Okay. To bring in some foot traffic to the new wine store that opened up and so on. And also there is an idea of attracting musicians on the summer and winter solstice to town to hold events in parking lots and so on and so forth. Again, to bring foot traffic and drive traffic to our businesses. Is there anything else I've missed, Betsy?
Do you want to talk about the gift card option? I could talk about that later.
Yeah, why don't you cover that? I don't think my notes are very complete on that. And also, the Amity Board of Education met since our last meeting twice. First on the 14th of March, and Fiduciant was there to present I think they handled the pension funds for the Amity Board of Education. They seem to be doing rather well with our pension fund for the Amity Board. Their fixed income was flat, but their equities investments have been strong and have been strong for quite a while. I think their rates are going up rather significantly, but their rates have been flat for, I think, 4 or 5 years. So I guess it's actually their rates have been flat for 5 years. So they're doing well for us. let's see. Also, we had 3 students, I believe, that were awarded the National Merit Scholarship. So I think the school is doing really rather well with their students. We met again on April 4th. I think it was on the 4th that Jim Leahy from the Board of Finance in Orange made a very detailed presentation on the overage in the budget. We typically have we over budget for the Amity Board of Education by $1 million, sometimes a couple of $1 million, and so on. So Jim gave us a very detailed presentation and asked the Board of Education to perhaps reel that in. I may have mentioned to you guys previously that Connecticut passed a law recently that allows boards of education to retain up to 2% of any overage for capital expenditure the following year. And Jim was advocating that we actually reel these overages in. And he did a fine job of it. And I think that wraps it up for my liaison.
Thank you very much, Paul. Let's see, David Lober. I think you have a mute problem there, David.
I have a full plate here. My mute problem. All right. So in conservation, Stephanie Chiraleglio presented on the FOIA rules. She emphasized that minutes are the history of the meetings and should be reflective of votes and discussions. Votes should be posted within 48 hours and minutes within 7 days. She also spoke about the West River Coalition, which consists of 5 towns, Bethany, Woodbridge, Orange, West Haven, and New Haven, which runs 25 miles and has an area of 75,000 residents. The purpose of the coalition is to develop access, address pollution, create learning opportunities, connect neighborhoods, and their short-term plans include blazing trails, installing signs of places of interest or historical significance, and to organize walks. The West River has been overflows twice a year, and this year it has already overflowed twice. The Army Corps of Engineers consulted for possible solutions, including dredging Knowles Pond, deepening the river channel, and replacing the bridge culverts with box sections to allow greater flow and less chance of obstruction by debris. There was a land trust presentation. Brian Pines, the Woodbridge Land Trust, made a presentation regarding the offer to purchase conservation easement on the country club property. Other conserved properties in town are Alleghi, Eldersley, the Massaro, and Town Line Farms. The benefits of open spaces include passive recreation, walking trails, sledding, cross-country skiing, fishing, ice skating, preservation of wildlife and pollinator habitat, increased community interaction, preserving farm soils, reducing stress and stress-related health issues, and the high benefit to cost ratio supported by 3 comprehensive retrospective studies. The state of Connecticut Greens Plan has a goal of 21% open space for the state, with many municipalities having little open space. Those with ample open space can help to achieve that goal. Discussion followed regarding having this presentation made to other boards and commissions. The Merritt Avenue Development Project, the Conservation Commission has an interest in securing open space in this development for a trail connecting Woodbridge and New Haven. Questions about the extent of wetlands and space made unusable by a retention pond and its overflow area remain to be answered. The subcommittee on tree ordinance was drawn up for approval by the Conservation Commission and presentation in the future to the Board of Selectmen. And they also have a subcommittee to explore the availability of grants, their requirements, and their timelines. The Inland Wetlands Authority. The Greater New Haven Water Pollution Control Authority submitted a proposal to upgrade the pumping station on Route 243 and Brookside Drive, replacing the pumps and generators. The Wetlands Commission included that no wetlands would be impacted. They also granted an application for 14 Zack Hill Drive. This is interesting, there's something called a GM Solar Tracker, which was permitted on Seymour Road. The GM Solar Tracker is a mobile solar panel that follows the sun and therefore is much more efficient than fixed panels. They also have less impact on the environment. Merritt Avenue development. The bulk of the 2 March meetings were devoted to review of the Merritt Avenue project. The Woodlands Commission was concerned about building in a flood zone, the high water table there, which is 4.5 feet, the density of development, the neighbors' objections. One agency member described what he believed to be a vernal pool in the area, a seasonal pond used by breeding of frogs and salamanders, and protected. The expert for the developer disagreed, and the agency voted to engage their own expert for evaluation. A letter by the West River Authority expressed strong objection to the project based on above factors and also on the number of cars that would be proposed from the 28, the number of cars that would be generated from the 28 3-bedroom rental units that would be created. The question was continued until the next meeting. And lastly, I have Human Services. Youth Services has a guided study program, which can give students 30 minutes of tutoring a week. There'll be home alone classes, April 12th. That's yesterday, they were done, okay. Donations for the youth evening programs were generously provided by the Woodbridge Police Union, the Amity Middle School PATSA, and also by the following businesses: Amity Bowl, Dip Top Clay Date, and the Vault Virtual Reality. People's Bank has agreed to sponsor the First Selectmen's Youth Services Award for $200 prize. The Woodbridge Center has new programs, including lifestyle changes fitness program. They're having virtual tours of parks and museums, a St. Patrick's Day drive-through luncheon, which served 128 people. I'd like to thank Holly Shambron of Coldwell Banker and Coachman Square, who's sponsoring the event. And treat bags were donated by Hamden Rehab. Just a few more items. We have Earth Day, the 23rd. There's going to be a tag sale in the Grove from 10 to 1, $10 per table. There's going to be a crime prevention program April 28th in the Center Gym, presented by the police department. And the former White House butler, Alan de Valerio, will make a presentation May 5th on entertainment in the White House, not to be missed. Their new pickleball courts are being developed at the tennis courts. The programs that will be in person at the center are going to be moved to the library during construction. And I guess that's how they're, okay. So there were 120 test kits that were distributed to vulnerable seniors. 200 clients were served with tax assistance, and transportation to medical visits in Beacon Falls will now be provided because it is closer than New Haven, and some seniors have doctors up there. And there's going to be a vaccine clinic. I think that's enough. Thank you for indulging me.
No worries, very informative, thank you.
Yep.
Sheila.
Okay, I checked the calendar, and in the past month, the Woodbridge Board of Ed met on March 21st. I took part in that meeting. The main message that I had for them was regarding budget. And at that point, we had come to a conclusion, and we have a budget that is now going to the public hearing Monday night, April 18th. So there was some discussion about their support for that process. And I thank them for working with us collaboratively to get that to be a number that we can send to the public. Then on March 28th, CUPOP also met. There was discussion again about the littering ordinance, which was at that point scheduled to go before the ordinance committee. And then I'll just add in the ordinance committee. I'll give you an update on that. So we did meet on April 7th. We took a look at the language that was recommended to add an ordinance regarding littering in the town. We had Police Chief Frank Cappiello come to the meeting, and he gave us some input. His suggestion to us was that while he did not see a need for an additional town law, that he believes he has what's on the books at the state level is sufficient. He also noted that it can sometimes cause confusion if there are two competing laws that could potentially be used if someone's going to receive a citation for littering. So his thinking was that it was not needed to add an ordinance. And the committee discussed it a little bit further and thought that perhaps a public information campaign is something that we would recommend back to the town, to this full board, and potentially for staff to help guide through, to let people know that we have a sense of pride in the beauty of our town. We don't want littering to take place, especially on our roadways, and that we would encourage residents, homeowners, people in the neighborhood to come together and do events like Rid Litter Day. I know that's going to happen in conjunction with Earth Day this year, but it couldn't happen more frequently if individual neighborhoods want to get together. Chief Cappiello said that his police officers would stand ready to kind of do some traffic duty, so that if people are going to go alongside a busy road such as Amity Road, that we would make sure that cars were aware and there would be no danger to people picking up litter on the side of the road. But generally speaking, a pride and beautify Woodbridge approach is something that we'd like to see embraced first. If we turn out that we can't control litter and we need to go back and think about an ordinance again, we wanted to first give the public information campaign a try. So that was one portion of the ordinance committee meeting. A second item that this board had sent to ordinance was a review of all ordinance. We began by looking at, I believe it's chapter 75, which is where all the boards and commissions are detailed. And one of the things we noticed is that it seems like the overlying ordinance says that boards and commissions should meet at least 6 times per year. So that seemed to indicate that there's a possibility that they don't have to meet more than 6 times per year, which would be every other month rather than monthly. And some discussion by the ordinance committee members, we thought it would be important to bring back to the rest of the Board of Selectmen, so that when you are functioning as liaisons to various boards, if you want to bring this up to them, to let them know that already they could alter their schedule so that they're meeting less frequently. But I think importantly, if you could bring back to us and bring back to the ordinance committee information about whether that's something that would work for most boards and commissions. We really, it's going to depend. Some boards and commissions could save up their work and do it every other month. Others would need to be monthly. Things that are required, like inland wetlands and TPZ and things like that. But I know from discussions with CUPOP that they sometimes feel like they're having a meeting and it's the same thing on each agenda, but there's nothing specific that they're working on that needs to require a meeting every month. So with that notion that it's possible they could switch, our thinking here is that it is government services when we are sending people to do minutes, when we have town employees doing minutes, filing agendas, preparing presentations, et cetera. So if we're looking to make town government more efficient and could potentially go to every other month for some of our boards and commissions, I think we should look at that. I think the ordinance committee would like to get that input. So that would be the update. And if you would all talk with your boards and commissions and see what they think. They may like the idea, they may not like the idea. We need to hear from them.
And Sheila, the only addition that I have to make to that was that it's at least 6 times a year unless otherwise described in the ordinance. And for example, our investment committee is specified to meet at least twice a year. So they wouldn't even have to meet that many times, although quarterly might be appropriate for them at a minimum. But you can put it into the ordinance if they choose to meet even fewer times.
Yeah, that would be the other piece of input we would like from boards and commissions. If they feel they want to go to quarterly, for example, if Coopop or somebody want to go to quarterly, by all means, let us know that. It's possible to make that change in ordinance. That's it.
Thank you. Okey doke. David Vogel, good segue.
Sure. I went to the Library Commission on March 14th. Sarah Shepard, the head of circulation, was introduced to us as she joined us for the meeting. We received a report of the finances where 2/3 of the year has gone by and 61% of the budget has been used. There was an accounting of the Friends of the Library revenue in of about $30, and $2,600 had been spent from the Friends account to purchase 8 new computer chairs for the library. The other big item under consideration by the Library Commission was the possibility, as we know, as you may be aware, the overdue fines were eliminated during COVID, and making that a permanent situation, which many libraries have done, is under consideration, and it has been referred to the policy subcommittee. The policy and personnel subcommittee has considered this and is going to make a report at the next meeting back to the Library Commission with a suggestion, considering all the ramifications, including a small loss of revenue to the town, but it isn't significant. At least that's what we hear from Tony. And that's all from the Library Commission. GATV on the 22nd did not have a quorum, so they scheduled another meeting, a special meeting, but I was otherwise occupied at that date, so I did not get to that meeting. And the Recreation Commission that was scheduled on the 28th of March was canceled. So that's all I have to report from the commissions.
Okay, thank you so much. And with that, we will move on to item 8, which is the 2030 Ad Hoc Committee presentation and request from Laura Petrie. And I believe that Tony and Betsy will perhaps do some intros to this. And I know Laura's in the waiting room, I hope, to be joining us. Looks like she's coming in.
Actually, 2030 co-chair Susan Jacobs is here to do a quick
I see that. Yep.
introduction to
Okay,
the project.
wonderful. Okay, so we'll let Susan take it away.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can't see you, but we can hear you.
I'm not in control of that. Oh, here we go. There we go. So first of all, thank you for having us.
And there you are.
There I am. I might not have been there until 2030 actually happened, but we made it work. Okay. So just let me give you a little context for Woodbridge 2030. In some ways, it feels like we've hit every possible wall we could have in the last year or two, in part because we're charged with coming up with ideas, and virtual meetings don't lend themselves to big thinking. But we have persevered, and we've been tasked, as you know, with sort of thinking big picture. How can the business district contribute to increasing our grand list? It's different, of course, than the Economic Development Commission. Most of you already know those distinctions. But their work is incredibly important, and our work is sort of more future focused and looking to see what does Woodbridge want to look like in 10 years. We're now down to 8, by the way. We've had many robust discussions about what it is that our community does right, what it is that our community does wrong, what our assets are, what our challenges are. And it's clear we're sort of at that moment as a committee, as a group. The professional guidance is really the best next step we can take to put our thinking into some sort of concrete form, and I mean that literally. So our next steps is to do just that, and we have Laura here, and I understand she's going to talk to you about what it is that she's proposing.
Thank you, Susan. Good evening.
Good evening. I would love to be able to share my screen. I'm not sure if I need permission to do that. And while I'm getting that permission, I'll introduce myself. My name is Laura Peary. I'm principal of Peary Associates Architects. We're located in New Haven. We are architects, placemaking specialists, landscape architects, and interior designers. We work across all of the built environment modalities. And we've been working pretty closely with Betsy and Tony over the last couple of months to refine a scope of work, along with the 2030 community committee, as Susan just explained. And I'm here tonight to share with you our proposal for a scope of services that actually quite nicely dovetails in with another proposal that that actually Betsy has been working on for quite some time. So let me just get this into the right form for you. And so with that, I'll just introduce some high-level thoughts here and then be happy to take some questions. And of course, Betsy and Susan jump in as needed. So our scope of work, or our thoughts about how to help the 2030 committee achieve their goals, was to think about the Flats area, also called Woodbridge Village in recent past studies, and to think about what the next steps of that would be to help first identify some goals and a vision for this area, and to begin to lay out strategies for implementation. And so, as it turns out, about in 2017, I believe it was, Betsy had submitted a grant request to the SCROG to undertake a connectivity study that has to do with roadways, walking ways, bikeways through the down flats area, the flat area of Woodbridge. SLR, who's not here tonight, was selected for that, and the grant was finally approved and returned at the same time that we were discussing a scope of work around placemaking. And the wonderful thing about this is SLR is a technical firm and a design firm, and their scope of work included quite a bit of analysis of roadways and connectivity, and it's a perfect fit or collaboration with our placemaking scope of work description. So I'm going to describe our scope of work for the project with the 2030 committee and also refer to SLR's work, because the two are really being dovetailed together to make a more actionable plan as a result of this effort. So what's included? The first step is basically identifying goals for this area of the town and turning that into a vision or a visual record or visual story of what that might look like. There will be community engagement elements of this. And the idea is to work with the 2030 committee to be the facilitators and liaison and the experts, if you will, on certain topics of this based on the work that we do together. So they will be critical in leading this engagement process with my firm. From the information that we get and what we learn in the visioning and goal setting process, we will come up with placemaking component plans. Those component plans will then become the inspiration for SLR to develop their connectivity plan, which is what they've been tasked with doing through the SCROG grant. So as I mentioned, we are very excited to propose a process that we really love to do, which is engaging community leaders in leading their community through this. And so the 2030 committee is excited, as we are excited to work with them, to be the collaborators in this project. We will be meeting with the community and stakeholders as part of the engagement. And the idea of engaging the 2030 community in this is they know detail and information and preferences and inclinations of the community any better than we could. So to be able to have such intimate wisdom and knowledge on our visioning committee is really important for the success and the ultimate cycle of this process. So placemaking elements is really the content of what we'll be looking at. We'll be looking at the previous visioning plan or master plan that was done with the Yale Urban Design Workshop, and be moving that forward into more actionable pieces. The things that we're really excited about looking at is not only the character and development, of this area of Woodbridge, but what makes Woodbridge unique? Because each place or placemaking as as an expertise or as an engagement is about making places unique. It's not about making them cookie cutter and looking like everywhere else, but actually to find what's unique and inspiring about Woodbridge and conveying that in the built form and in the place. And so that's how we approach placemaking and community design. So we want to look for those unique characteristics and merge them with uses, walkability, connectivity. There's some visual examples here of a placemaking project we did in downtown New Haven around the shops in Broadway. And the goal of this was to connect Chapel Street to Broadway as retail districts in downtown. And the reason I'm showing this is because there's some elements here that might be similar to what we'll be exploring and trying to identify for Woodbridge. So the first thing is we would state the purpose of this. So that would be the sort of first placemaking elements where we define the elements: street furniture, lighting, raised crosswalks, branded identification, and then unique aspects. In the case of this, it was a sculpture trail to link downtown areas. It became destination, but also the basis for economic development. We'll also be looking at density of building character, relationship of sidewalks. So you can see the sculpture trail diagram below that. And then on the right-hand side are just some examples of the actual placemaking elements. This won't be the palette of elements for Woodbridge because this is downtown New Haven. So our goal is to come up with those unique elements that will make Woodbridge feel even more like Woodbridge. The time frame in general is we'll be starting, if approved to proceed, in May with our visioning, which will be led by my office, and analysis by SLR. As I mentioned, the SLR grant is great because they're very technical. So they'll be doing roadway counts and looking at parcel ownership and other things that will give us very detailed information to not keep this study at a very high level, but actually to move it closer to implementation, which is really the goal of this. Over the summer, we'll be engaging with community input through meetings and workshops. We're excited to do that in the summer so we can do that outside and engage more people and have everyone feel safe. In the fall, we'll be finalizing our placemaking component plans, similar to what the visuals I just shared with you. And then in the fall, SLR will also be taking their connectivity plan and bringing it to fruition. So we'll be having, over the course of our work, 3 community meetings. The first one will be led by my office. The second one will be shared by my office and SLR. And then the last meeting will be with SLR so that we move to more and more concrete detail, literally and figuratively, as we move through the community meetings into the fall. Betsy or Susan, was there anything else I should add, or that's a quick overview?
Actually, I want to make a comment, Laura.
Yep.
Yep. So one of the other benefits of this this program and this study is that we're in a unique position where there's a lot of infrastructure funds coming through the federal government. And so we feel that the more planning we do and the more sort of shovel-ready projects that we have available, the better our chances of getting infrastructure funding to actually complete some of the projects that are suggested in this process. So we're very excited about that possibility. So that was another major reason why we wanted to move forward with this.
Yeah, and Tony, the only thing I wanted to add is to dovetail with what you're saying is that not only are these dollars sort of on the horizon, but we're very fortunate that these 2 planning paths are able to intersect at this point. They're not going to be discrete, or we're going to do this over here, and then 3 years later, we're going to do something else. We'll have the advantage, and I think it's just a good timing issue, the advantage of having both these efforts dance to the same music for a period of time. And, you know, that there's an efficiency in that that's enormously helpful to this entire effort.
It also, if I could just chime in on that, doing a lot of this public work, by merging the 2 efforts together, we avoid some of the fatigue that sometimes happens with project after project after project with the community, which then reduces engagement and activity. So we're really happy. Actually, we've recombined our efforts, and that's why I described the community meetings the way they are, to avoid some of that fatigue that sometimes happens if there's too many initiatives going on at the same time.
And we make a lot of jokes about concrete proposals.
Yeah, I've heard that a few times already this evening. It's great. Thank you. I guess first, before we move to any kind of action, I would ask the board members if they had any questions for you.
I have a question.
David Vogel, sorry. Yep.
Thank you. I've heard, though I wasn't part of the leadership at that time, but I have heard that the previous village plan was a top down, and you've mentioned a lot about community engagement. There was a lot of resistance because the community didn't feel like they wanted what was there or necessarily wanted. I suspect perhaps that was just as you mentioned it, an engagement issue. But a number of the commercial properties down there, and a lot of these properties are owned by, I mean, they're all privately owned, and a relatively small number of individuals who probably need to be brought on board. Do you have either you and Susan, what's the plan for the 2030 ad hoc committee to gain that kind of buy-in? Because that seems to be a critical element at this stage. I mean, if somebody owns a significant amount of property, really doesn't want to do anything with it, it kind of makes it hard for the town to do much.
Susan, do you want me to answer that first and then?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead?
I'd just like to know how
Yeah,
you're.
yeah. I'll talk to you about our process and what we have in mind and the scope that we've refined with the engagement of the committee and with town staff. And that is our first kind of portion of our effort is actually assessment and engagement, and that's taking the pulse of what's there right now. And I know Betsy over the last few years and Tony have engaged in kind of some analyses with building owners and business owners and renters about what they need to build their business and build their engagement with something like this. And basically, just to zoom out for one moment, there are two ways to build economic development in a town or in a place. One is to do market analyses where analytical exercises are taken on to assess what's missing in a community, what's the draw of a community. All of you all are probably familiar with market analyses. And then the development is targeted to where the town targets developers or businesses to check the boxes on that market analysis to build the economic baseline, let's say, of a town. The other way to develop to create economic development is to create a place that the town wants, that regardless of the entities that come on board, the town feels like there's a place that's being made that then people want to be, and to draw traffic to and draw attention to the place by building the place first, and then more organically inviting businesses to expand or to occupy that space. So starting with placemaking kind of takes a second route. But to do that, we have to understand the needs of the business, the needs of the community, the aspirations and the fears too. There will be fears about changing anything, right? Change is hard. And so understanding that full spectrum of hopes to fears helps us then sort of organize either where we need to reach out more or where we need to create more understanding or more bridges to put things in place. One of the strategies that we have is actually building a common frame of reference with the 2030 committee by visiting other localities that have done this and using that as a frame of reference. So Susan, did you want to add anything more than that, or Betsy?
No, I think that covers it. The only thing I would add is that I think that the resistance of a decade ago, or however long ago that was, that David pointed out, I have a sort of a gut feeling that the resistance, I think people are going to find themselves more open to the excitement that can be built with this placemaking effort. And then there's buy-in after that. Do I think it happens overnight? No, I don't. I think the planning process can be accelerated, but the buy-in may take a while. That's it.
And then on the practical note, one of the analyses that SLR will be doing is property ownership. So we can see where there are easier paths to maybe change or engagement and where there may be more long-term paths. And so that can be part of the SLR that will end up informing our placemaking process, but it will also help SLR with their connectivity plan because they're not going to suggest making connections in the immediate term that depend on complex land transactions or owner buy-in or something that may take longer term. So
And I did want to add just one other thing, and I don't want to get too far ahead of where we are, but I think the 2030 committee certainly envisions EDC as a partner in all of this economic development, and we haven't quite gotten there yet. But their efforts, hopefully, at some point, will dovetail with our efforts, and I think that addresses David's question to a certain extent.
So I had a quick question. This is probably a good time to jump in when you talk about partnering on this. So I'm excited to see the scope and the time frame there. That looks quick. Looks like we're going to take action. I'm wondering what the role of the Board of Selectmen might be in this process. At what points will you come back and tell us more about how the plans are shaping up? I know later in our agenda we have our strategic plan, and of course one of the tenets of our strategic plan is to grow and diversify the tax base in town. So that definitely, this is a means to do it. How do you see the Board of Selectmen either giving you input or maybe just participating in those community meetings and then hearing as things kind of get checked back in?
Sheila, I think it's all of it.
Okay.
I think it's all of those things. And it's not as if the Woodbridge 2030 committee or Laura or SLR were going to disappear. I mean, I think that the Board of Selectmen very much is a partner in this. But I think it's also the case that the ideas, although the ideas come fast, the implementation comes a little slower. But I think you make a very good point.
Terrific. And then the one other thing I would say though, talking about that the Plattis report from 2013 that EDC had done, that Village of Woodbridge. I don't know if you're wedded to that name because I think that is quite associated with that previous effort. So maybe take that off and then let the community talk to you about maybe we play up the West River and call it the West River neighborhood or something more creative maybe. But
that's a great idea. I think that was indeed a leftover from the Plattis plan. And so I did mean to say that when I introduced this, but yeah, that's a placeholder for sure. But I love the idea. And actually, Sheila, what you just recommend, thinking about the West River or the unique characteristics of this area, that's very much how we love to approach placemaking because it should be rooted in this place, how the place exists now, how it's existed historically, and where it wants to be in the future. And I love the idea of connecting it to the river or other natural features or resources that might come to play, as well as cultural connections. Like for this to be meaningful for people, it can't be sort of high level and abstract. It has to relate culturally and historically and geographically to the town.
Yeah, it's a beautiful feature. It'd be great to play it up. Thank you.
Anybody else from the board?
Yes, I would like to, I'd like to ask some questions. So you talk about a sense of place, which sadly the village district is lacking right now because it's so disconnected and a lot of it is just simply very unattractive. There's no other way to put it. And it's also not walkable. So as far as funding these changes and incentivizing the property owners to make changes, we as a town government can direct out those funds, can we not? In other words, we've got some ARPA money for the development down there, and it seems like this is the alignment of the planets where we can finally get some of these things taken care of.
I could say,
So-
David, we have some ARPA money, as you indicate. There's some infrastructure money that we can apply for. And I'm sure, Laura, there are some other funding mechanisms that are used in other towns that I've heard, including TIFs and other things that, maybe we can explore to actually make some things happen.
Right. So, generally, if you give property owners financial incentives, a lot of times they will see things your way, especially if it will benefit them, beyond just the initial financial incentive. The other problem that we have in Woodbridge, which you probably already know, is that we have a small population, and small population really can generate the amount of purchasing that a lot of these towns, developed town centers require, which means you have to bring people in from out of town, which means you have to have unique kinds of businesses which will attract people. We have had some of those businesses, and they have disappeared as people have retired and abandoned their businesses, and nobody wanted to take them up. So historically, we have had those special kinds of businesses, and those niches have not been filled. So I would suggest that you look at what we had here and what we no longer have that was successful.
David, I can tell you that the Woodbridge 2030 committee has spent any number of frustrating hours on that very topic. And it's time to go to the next step, in part because we don't want to just spin our wheels on how frustrating we all are on that very dynamic. So believe me, we're there.
We were one time at a meeting. Actually, it was a walking through the business district, and we were standing on the corner, and we were just commenting about how much traffic there is in this area. And we were standing with Patrick at the time, who was from Connecticut Main Street, and he commented that it's actually an asset if you want to bring people from out of town, because so many people pass through the district on a daily basis. We just have to make them stop driving through.
Yeah. The last question that I have has to do with the Department of Transportation plans for that area. Are you going to be coordinating with them or getting information from them about what they might be planning on doing in that district and how it would impact that development in there?
Yeah, that's the brilliance of the sort of confluence of circumstance right now, is that's SLR's expertise. And in fact, the grant that's paying for SLR's work is a DOT grant. And so we imagine there'll be exact direct connection between what those plans are to the extent that they can be had, and that will be part of the assessment that SLR pulls together that will feed our placemaking work.
Right. So would you call this a master plan for the Woodbridge Village District?
Yeah, I think we are going to invent a new name, perhaps, but yes, I think this is a placemaking plan. It won't lay out, I don't think, exact planning and massing for every block. We're going to pick the most impactful pieces and create a series of visual and character-driven recommendations for those things to set the framework to then be filled in consistently from that. So where before there was a plan that laid out all the streets and had very high level, we're going to, through the work with the 2030 committee and with community input, do the assessment, see where the opportunities exist, and then focus in on very specific strategies for improvement that can be catalytic for future development. Because the idea is to not make it so overwhelming that it feels like it's too big a plan to implement. I think we want to come up with very catalytic and strategic interventions that then can can be completed so everyone can experience the success of those and the change that comes along with them, so that then future improvements can be made and follow along in character.
Right. So you folks apparently have a lot of experience doing this. You've got several towns that you mentioned that you might want us to visit. So You folks look like you're an architectural firm, is that correct? Or you're architectural and planning?
We're architectural, planning, placemaking, landscape, we're
So
multidisciplinary.
you cover it all. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else from the board have any comments or questions? So I guess I would ask Susan and or Betsy or Tony to go over what you need from the board at this point and funding sources, et cetera. Maybe Tony could do that. Thank you. We're here for you.
So the funding is a combination of this year's budget and next year's budget. As you recall, we have some planning dollars in the budget, the selectmen's budget this year to begin the project. And then we have some planning dollars in next year's selectmen's budget to complete the project. So it's just sort of a split depending on timing, depending on.
What would you prefer we do tonight?
Tonight, you just need to authorize to move forward with the agreement. Authorize the town to move forward.
Everyone has received in their packet, I hope.
Right.
So it's $12,000 plus reimbursable expenses from this year's budget, correct? For selectmen's budget?
That's it's phase one of the project, and then phase two of the project is 14.
Design framework for $14,000 for reimbursables expenses. Well, to get the ball rolling, I will make a motion that we approve both of those as described. You need anything else? Tony, okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, David. Any other comments or questions on any of this?
I just had a question about the current budget. I get how we're expending that, but are we expending the July 1 budget, or are we just adding this to?
The portion that's in the July 1 budget, she's not going to be able to get to until July 1 anyway. So that will only continue if it gets approved at the meeting.
Okay, so tonight, are we only doing that first phase?
You could do them in phases if you'd like, if you feel more comfortable, certainly.
My motion was to do both, so if you.
I know we're optimistic that the budget is going to go through with flying colors, but.
Maybe I could amend the motion to say pending approval of the annual town budget. This item in the annual town budget in May.
Right. And then does that deplete that line item completely, that planning line item in the board of selectmen budget?
Yeah, there's about $4,000 or $5,000 that would be remaining.
In the next year's budget.
Correct.
Yeah, this year's budget, it's gone, right?
This year, it depletes this year's budget, yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, so with that friendly amendment, and I think we had a second from David Lober, I hope you'll accept that.
Yes.
Friendly amendment. Okay, so any other comments or questions? Hearing none, David Vogel.
Aye.
Thank you. Sheila McCrevin.
Aye.
David Lober.
Aye.
Paul Kirikos.
Aye.
Joe Crisco.
Aye.
Thank you. And Beth Heller. Aye. Thank you all
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
for your time and the great presentation. We look forward to some good things coming forward.
Thank you. Look forward to it. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. With that, we will move on to item 9. Is that where we are? Request to waive town building permit fee in the amount of $1,089. The construction of the approved Sorrow Farm. We did receive from P&Z regarding the A24. Any problems with that? And just to open this up in case there's any discussion, I will make a motion that we do this. My understanding is it's just we're waiving the town fees, not the state fees, correct, Tony?
Correct.
Okay.
It's a pass-through fee.
Right, okay. So I'll make a motion that we approve the Sorrow Community Farm waiver of the building permit fees for our new learning garden of $1,089. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Anyone have any comments or questions on this? Whoa, okay. I'll call the roll. Joe Crisco?
Aye.
Beth Heller, aye. Paul Kirikos?
Aye.
David Lober?
Aye.
Sheila McCrevin?
Aye.
And David Vogel.
Aye.
Wonderful. That's a real good thing. Can't wait for that to get done. Okay, and I think we're up to Administrative Officer Director Finance Report versus the monthly report.
Thank you, Beth.
Welcome.
A monthly report through March of 2022, which is just a year-end surplus of $672,000. The town in our budget process allocates 400,000 from fund balance, or has a fund balance allocation of 400,000. So therefore, that would be an additional $272,000 added to our fund balance at the end of the year, which brings it to just about $7 million or 13.55%. The intergovernmental revenue is a big source of that surplus, and that includes $163,000 reimbursement from FEMA for storm costs from Storm Isaias. We received a $15,000 pilot that we had not budgeted for. And finally, we anticipate approximately $255,000 in additional special education excess cost grant funding that we did not have in our budget. We had estimated, we received that estimate actually each year from the Woodbridge Board of Education. Last year, they were conservative on their estimate. So, so we have that surplus this year in our budget. Investment income has a deficit of $80,000, and I'm hoping to see some movement there. But as of the current time, we are still doing poorly in those returns. And finally, our department charges surplus of $177,000. Most of that is from a surplus in building permits, $175,000. A good portion of which was for the work done by the RWA for work on some of their facilities. We do have a small surplus in transfer station fees, as we've seen some funds roll in for the bulky waste, and a shortfall in the library and other charges of about $17,000. The library shortfall is only a few $1,000s from the fines, which was mentioned earlier. On our expenditures, generate some of the larger areas of there's a surplus in the building officials line of about $25,000, basically in wages for the building official, as that's determined as typically as needed. So we have to estimate what the hours will be at the beginning of the year. Human Services has a surplus of about $30,000 anticipated at the end of the year. Again, that's in most of that is in wages, and a library has a surplus of about $30,000, also mainly in wages. Both of those are due to timing of some programming that has returned to each department, and we had to sort of estimate when we thought programming would return, and so that's where some of that comes from. And finally, a small surplus in benefits of about $10,000. So those are our major items for this month. Are there any questions?
Okay, hearing none, we will move on to tax refunds. We have two to do this evening. The first one is in your packet, tax refunds on motor vehicle refunds of amount of $3,625.21. I'll make a motion that we approve that. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks. Any comments or questions? Wasn't sure if anybody was out there. Okay, hearing none. I'm going to start in the middle. David Lober.
Aye.
Sheila McCrevin.
Hi.
Thank you. David Vogel.
Aye.
Paul Kuriakose.
Aye.
Joe Crisco.
Aye.
And Beth Heller. Aye. Thank you. I mixed it up a little. We got to start waking up here, guys. Okay. Second one that we received today, I think, or maybe, I don't know. Anyway, real estate refunds in the amount of $10,846.77. I'll make a motion that we approve that. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. Paul Kuriakose.
Aye.
Beth Heller, aye. Joe Crisco.
Aye.
David Vogel.
Aye.
David Lober.
Aye.
And Sheila McCrevin.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 11 is a resolution. As I mentioned in my remarks this evening, we received $2 million from the Department of Economic and Community Development for conversion of a former firehouse to a new community center. Tony, do you know, do I need to read this?
I don't believe you need to read it. I think you could refer to it. I'm not sure. Jerry, do you know that answer to that? I don't think so.
I could do the part where it's resolved by the Woodbridge Board of Selectmen.
Right, okay, fair.
Yep. Because the whereases are whereases. Okay, that it is cognizant, the Board of Selectmen is cognizant of the conditions and prerequisites for the state financial assistance imposed by Section 4-6, C and of the Connecticut General Statutes, that the filing of an application for state financial assistance by the town of Woodbridge in an amount not to exceed $2 million is hereby approved, and that First Selectman Beth Heller is directed to execute and file such application with the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development, provide such additional information to execute such other documents as may be required to execute an assistance agreement with the state of Connecticut for state financial assistance if such an agreement is offered, to execute any amendments, decisions, and revisions thereto, and to act as the authorized representative of the town of Woodbridge. Is there a motion to resolve that?
So moved.
Thank you, Sheila. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions about this? Comments? Hearing none. Joe Crisco.
Aye.
Beth Heller, aye. Paul Kyriakos.
Aye.
David Lober.
Aye.
David Vogel.
Aye.
Thank you. And Sheila McCrevin.
Aye.
Thank you. I've learned over the last couple of years that all of a sudden, if you have a shovel-ready project available and you get a call from somebody from the state or the feds, do you have anything? We just got lucky because we've been looking at funding this since 2006. So, and the same thing with the senior center, we had it ready. And so that's why, as I said in the beginning, it's good to go forward. So I think this is now approved. And moving on to the next item is the number 12, the strategic plan update from Ms. McCrevin and Mr. Vogel.
Well, as it is starting to get late now, I know you have in your packet another iteration of the strategic plan. Again, if you want to take a look at it, give us further input into what we're doing here. What we're trying to kind of get a broad sense of is what is it that the Board of Selectmen will do. And it's not necessarily going to be us doing things. You saw tonight, the 2030 task force is working on something specifically. They're going to work in concert with the EDC, et cetera. And that's helping us to, support and grow that business district. So that is one of the pieces in our strategic plan. What I would like us to do as we solidify this and get ready to make it a reality is for this to guide our work on the Board of Selectmen. So perhaps we would even, as we make up agendas in the future, just indicate which of our strategic initiatives we're talking about that evening. This way, the public can pretty transparently see where we're going and how we're going to achieve the things we say we want to do. So we're trying to keep it simple and we're trying to keep it high level and let everybody do the work they're supposed to do, but just have a way for the Board of Selectmen to do a regular touch base on what it is we're trying to do and keep us on track to do it. So David, do you have more to discuss about what we've been talking about at our committee meetings?
No, I think that pretty well does it. As everybody can see, we put a little bit of detail into the organizations that we anticipate that might be involved in each of the initiatives. And, the board may or may not agree on tactics on how to do these things, but that's probably what we ought to come up with our best ideas on. I think most of the initiatives are pretty basic to running the town, and we try to stay that way. So, we will build tactics under each of the goals as we go along.
I think there is so much in this. You guys have done a wonderful job, David and Sheila, for really outlining. And as David just mentioned, I like having responsible organizations. That sort of defines the pieces and which groups are going to be responsible should they agree to. But would it be helpful for us to take pieces, as Sheila suggested, each month, and perhaps you could give us, what you'd like each month to do, or perhaps we need, I hesitate to think of more meetings, but, to begin to move this along, whatever would be better for the board. But I think I can't think of anything you've forgotten. It's really, I really applaud both of you and Tony and Betsy for really working on this. I know you've been meeting weekly, I think, to really drill down on this and get it done. And I'm
Yes, and we're getting excellent guidance from your staff, Beth. So I do think that's a great idea. Maybe what we'll discuss at our next meeting is where we would like to, what we would like to talk more broadly about at the Board of Selectmen level. I did make a little note in the corner here, Tony, when you told us how much was going to be left in the Board of Selectmen budget next year. So I think we need to talk about how we're going to, because we want to make sure we have the resources allocated to do the work. And that's a decision that the full board needs to make. Is this indeed the work we want done? But I think this committee can do some of that thinking about how we might get these things done and what resources we could align. So sounds like we have an agenda for our next meeting.
And you will get back to us with your piece, with the pieces that you would like to have.
Yes, and we're aiming to have this sort of finalized in a final state so that it can be, the public can hear more about it. Maybe it can be either presented or on the website so that we're up and running for July 1. As the new fiscal year starts and the new budget starts, we want to sort of guide our work as a Board of Selectmen along the lines of what's in that budget. Once it's
we have 2 more meetings between now and then.
We're going to get stuff done then.
Okay.
Yeah,
Beth,
challenge accepted.
Tony and Betsy are knee deep in this, and they really they have a great. They've been great on the guidelines of what we need to have, and having a small group works very well because we can really get through things quickly without a lot of discussion. But it would really help if board members give us a call about questions or things, and just keep filling us with your ideas so that we can distill it down. And we know what's happening on the ground with Tony and Betsy. They're really on top of this. So, I think we can flesh it out pretty nicely.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anybody have any questions for David or Sheila on this? Okay, thank you. Moving on, we'll go to the segue into the next the ARPA American Rescue Plan Act for those in the audience. Our ARPA funds. I believe we discussed, that's where Jeanette's memo is in.
Right.
So we don't need
That's correct.
Yeah, we all have a copy of that. We referred to it earlier when we did our approving. So that's it. Is there anything else anybody wants
Yeah,
to?
I just have a quick comment on the
Thank you.
that's the that where our hope and our plan is that this the strategic plan that was just discussed will help provide a framework for the ARPA funds, and perhaps some of the ARPA funding can help to accomplish some of your goals. We've sort of been on a pause with that until this plan was further down the road here in a little more completed format, so that then the board could decide with public input, of course. Maybe there are some of these initiatives that you want to start to accomplish with either ARPA money or other funds. But I can say this is a very helpful document. It does provides with the guidance and the direction. So we're sort of on a little bit of a pause with the ARPA money until then.
Better that we get it right.
Just to clarify, where we get approximately $2.6 million is the total amount we get from ARPA, and just this month we're filing our annual report, which will allow us to use the standard deduction for using the revenue loss, so that we can use it for governmental purposes. So we're just doing that this month, actually. So that was it.
Thank you, Tony. Anybody have any questions for Tony on that? Betsy or anyone else? Thank you for the update. Okay, wonderful. Next on the agenda is the Assistant Administrative Officer's report, and I see Betsy's here, of course.
Thank you. So tonight I've got just a few updates for you. I wanted to let you all know that the town did end up applying for the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection grant for the pay-as-you-throw trash program that we've discussed over the past few months. The program outlined in our grant application is scaled back from what we originally discussed. It's more simple. In this pilot program, residents would opt in to participate. So you'll remember that pay as you throw requires participating residents to use a limited number of trash bags, which encourages residents to think more about reducing and recycling. So they're trying to get things out of their trash bag because they have fewer trash bags. Residents who choose to participate in this pilot, assuming we get the grant, would also get curbside food waste pickup. It's estimated that about 20% of household trash is food, and food's very heavy. So removing food from the waste stream is financially helpful. It also helps those people who are, intentionally limiting the number of trash bags that their household is using. So if we do earn the grant, I'll keep you in the loop about the program and how residents can sign up. We would need, I think it's between about 150 residents would be the minimum to participate, and about 300, 325 would be the maximum. So if we get the grant, we're pretty confident that there's enough residents in town who would be interested in participating in this pilot program. Reporting on solar, wanted to give you an update on our ongoing saga to put solar on the firehouse and public works building. You may remember that there's a complication because of the microgrid. Our partner, the Green Bank, has been investigating this issue further with UI and Fuel Cell Energy, which owns and operates the fuel cell, which powers the microgrid that UI owns. And it looks like the construction costs to make the project work safely and in tandem with the microgrid are going to be unsustainable for the project, unfortunately. We are staying in touch with the Green Bank to investigate any other options for solar we have, because it looks like this particular option is not going to be feasible. So very frustrating, but we're still looking around to see what we might be able to do. Excuse me.
Betsy, can I ask you a quick question about that? It's the buildings that are connected to the microgrid make it so that they can't be connected to solar. Is that?
Yes, so this is very complicated, so I'm going to try and explain it. I barely understand it. It's very, very complicated. So the microgrid only operates when the regular grid goes down. So the solar panels would be operating on the regular grid. So we would need to run cabling between the fuel cell at Amity High, run all new separate cabling underground to these two buildings that we're looking to install solar on. And those would also be connected to the switches at the fuel cell, so that when the grid goes down and the microgrid goes on, the switches would tell the solar panels to stop feeding power into the grid. What makes it incredibly expensive and doesn't make the project make sense anymore is the trenching and the construction costs to run those wires to allow for the solar to turn off when the microgrid turns on.
So even though Amity has solar on their roof, they must have done this at the time.
Their solar, I think, their solar preceded. It's also right on site, so they don't have the trenching issues that we have because the fuel cell is right there.
I don't know if it's possible to think about taking one of the buildings out of the microgrid in order to use solar, because the microgrid has actually never functioned at all, right?
Well, no, it has functioned, and it is something that we will only use occasionally, hopefully, but the firehouse will certainly be in need of ongoing energy in the case of a prolonged power outage, and so will the public works garage. So it's just unfortunate that these two particular buildings are the ones that are most viable for solar and are the ones that we need the most in the case of a prolonged outage.
Yeah.
Might be different if it was, say, the library, right? Where if you have to close the library during a prolonged power outage, that's not a safety issue for residents.
Yeah, or the center building itself, right?
Yeah. So it's been a frustrating saga, and we've learned a lot, and it is very unlikely that we will not be able to go forward because of the cost associated with making this work.
So Betsy, this has to be hardwired. It can't be done remotely, wirelessly?
That's my understanding.
Really? Okay.
And we can't use the traditional wiring that's the overhead wiring on telephone poles, huh?
Correct, because those wires would go out.
Right. Oh, boy.
Yeah, it's very complicated.
Yeah.
So,
And is all of the town center on the microgrid? Is that, or is it just some of the buildings?
I believe everything except the old firehouse. Is that right, Tony?
Everything, yeah, everything is on the microgrid.
And Betsy, just one other question. So because it's a municipal building, we can't sell to the grid? I mean, what stops us from putting solar panels up that don't connect into the building they're sitting on at all and just sell it into the grid and use
I
those
think the
credits?
problem is that they would still be on the grid.
Yeah, and instead of just wiring them separately, like literally don't connect them to the wiring of the
So,
firehouse, just
one
put
of-
them into the grid.
One option for that, Sheila, is essentially doing a ground mounted system somewhere. You know.
Yeah, but
and
I'm just thinking, what's the difference if it's ground mounted and goes into the grid, or
It's
it's
the
up
same
on
kind of
the
same
roof
idea.
and it goes into the grid? It's just not, we're not directly taking the energy, we're just selling it. I don't know. Maybe there's a rule that says we can't do that. We had something like this at Beecher, right? We had to.
Yeah, you do. It's called virtual net metering, where it goes into the grid, and then you take the credits that you generate into the grid on your fuel bill, on your electric bill.
Right. And do we need legislation to allow us to do it, or because that we could probably get?
It's currently allowed, but I have to think that the Green Bank is very, very, very interested in completing this project. I have to think that if that were a viable option, that would have been explored, because we've looked at this every which way.
Okay, we'll have to just keep trying.
Unless you have a big power plant of solar, there's the economics of it don't work very well. First of all, the United Illuminating controls the access, and they get to tell you what you can and can't do in any given area. But also the transmission is just as expensive as the generation. So you have to pay for the transmission of it. So it's like, you don't really, I know that's why these big generating solar plants, they've got some sort of they have a contract with the power companies to buy it rather than just putting it in and metering it.
So if anything changes or I learn anything more about this, I will certainly report back.
Thank you, Betsy. Oh,
So, as mentioned earlier, Earth Day is coming up. That event will be next Saturday, April 23rd. And leading up to the event, residents may purchase compost bins and rain barrels online to be picked up at the event. They may also sign up now to be a tag sale vendor. They can drop off clothing in good condition for the clothing swap. At the event, there will be a craft supply swap, a tag sale, a clothing swap. Goodwill will be there to take donations. There will be textile recycling, electronic recycling, mattress recycling. Organizations will have informational tables. There will be a small electric vehicle car show, and of course, the Friends of the Library book sale. And there will be food trucks. And as Sheila mentioned, Red Litter Day will be taking place on this day as well. The Community Council is also organizing a free community bike fun ride in May to celebrate the town's new bike route. It's also National Bike Month in May, so the timing is really nice. Prior to the ride, there will be bike safety checks from Amity Bike and an opportunity to decorate bikes. There will be 2 rides, a short one to and from Beecher, where the PTO will offer a fun break activity and snack. And the other ride will go the whole 6-mile loop. Both rides will end up back at the library lawn, where there will be chalk art, lawn games, food truck, and live music provided by the library. So it should be a really nice event. As mentioned earlier by Paul, the EDC is looking into Make Music Day to be held in the business district on the summer solstice, which is June 21. The goal is to have several simultaneous concerts. I've reached out to a few property owners and they're very interested. So I'll report back to you if we can make that happen. EDC is also looking into creating a more formal gift card program, similar to the Woodbridge Bucks gift cards that they did last February. This would be working with a vendor to sell virtual gift cards that could be redeemed at participating Woodbridge businesses. There's no cost to the town to start or run the program, and there's no cost to the businesses that participate. Anyone buying a gift card would pay a small fee on top of the value of the card, and those would be virtual gift cards. So we're hoping to get that working. And that's it.
Thank you.
Betsy, I had one quick question. I saw the signs up for the bike route. Are there any plans on widening any of those places which are very narrow? There are a few spots which are 6, 8, 10 inches wide. Most of it is not, but there are some constricted areas. And I noticed one on 243 near Beecher. I just wanted to ask that question.
So about half of the bike route is on state roads and the other half is on town roads. So the state has a plan that when they do restriping or resurfacing and restriping, they are supposed to either do or consider widening the shoulder and making the travel lanes more narrow, which would make a cyclist feel as if they have more room.
Right.
But I have not seen any of the roads on our bike route come up for restriping this summer. But it is definitely on my radar to make that request.
Yeah. Some of those are a little scary. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anything else for Betsy? Any questions? Okay, thank you. Next item is the applications to hold event on town property. We have one in your packet from the Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Department regarding a fundraiser / dance, which they're going to hold on May 21st from 5 to 11:45 at the firehouse. And you have in your packet the application with all the fields necessary are completed. I will make a motion that we approve it. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And now, does anyone have any questions about the event that I probably can't answer, but hopefully Betsy can? Okay. So we have a motion and a second on that. Okay. Joe Crisco?
Aye.
Beth Heller, aye. Paul Kirikos?
Aye.
David Lober? David Lober? Thank you.
Sorry, aye.
That's okay. Sorry, it's taking so long here. Sheila McCrevin?
Aye.
And David Vogel.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And next is, let's see, sorry. Call to the annual town meeting on May 16th, 2022. My understanding, I just have to read this motion and then somebody seconded and then we go forward. So in accordance with the charter of the town of Woodbridge, Article 3, Section 3-2, the Board of Selectmen hereby votes to notify all electors and citizens qualified to vote in a town meeting of the town of Woodbridge that the annual town meeting will be held on May 16th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. Daylight Savings Time in the Woodbridge Firehouse, 100 Center Road, Woodbridge, Connecticut, to 1, elect a town moderator for a 2-year term, 2, to consider and take action on the FY23 budget as recommended by the Board of Finance, 3, to conduct any other business proper to come before the meeting. Is there a second to that motion? Thank you, Joe. Any discussion or questions on this motion? Hearing none. David Vogel.
Aye.
Sheila McCrevin.
Aye.
David Lober.
Aye.
Paul Kirikos.
Aye.
Joe Crisco.
Aye.
And Beth Heller, aye. Thank you. Gosh, state affirmations, we do these every year for the newest members. They are in your packet. I hope you have all read them. What I've been told I am allowed to do is list all of the state affirmations that are in your packet, and then we can vote on them as a group. So with that, the first one is the affirmative action policy statement. Second is the ADA notice. Third is the conflict of interest policy. Fourth is the ADA municipal grievance procedure. 5 is the compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. 3, 4, 5, 6 is the Fair Housing Policy Statement. And 7th is the Fair Housing Resolution. Would someone like to make a motion that we approve these state affirmations? Thanks, Joe. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. And any discussion on any of these, any edits, changes, or anything that anyone saw? Hearing none, I will call the question. Sheila McCrevin.
Aye.
David Vogel.
Aye.
David Lober.
Aye.
Beth Heller, aye. Joe Crisco.
Aye.
And Paul Kyriakos.
Aye.
Thank you. Phew. Next is the acknowledgement of the receipt of the town clerk's reports. You have them in your packet. I will make the motion that we approve them as presented in our packet. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Any comments or discussions on the reports? Hearing none. Won't it be nice when we can all just raise our hands? Oh my gosh, pretty soon. Joe Crisco.
Aye.
Beth Heller, aye. Paul Kyriakos.
Aye.
David Lober.
Aye.
Sheila McCrevin.
Aye.
And David Vogel.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, minutes. Have in your packet. The first one is Thursday, January 27th, 2022. The Town of Woodbridge joint meeting of the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen. The minutes are in your packet. I'll make a motion. We approve them. Is there a second?
Second. Aye.
Can we make one motion for all the minutes?
I do not know.
Yeah, we did it last time. Let's keep going.
Let's do it. Okay, so that's the first one. I'll make a motion that we approve the Town of Woodbridge Joint Board of Finance meeting, Board of Selectmen minutes from February 1st, 2022. Is there a second?
Second.
And then I'll make a motion that we approve the Board of Selectmen regular meeting of March 9th, 2022. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Does anyone have any edits, comments, changes, suggestions? Hearing none. What happens if somebody wasn't there and they have to abstain?
You don't have to abstain.
Okay, well, there we go. I hope you're right. Joe Crisco.
Aye.
Beth Heller, aye. Paul Kyriakos.
Aye.
David Lober.
Aye, but they spelled my name wrong in one of those.
Which one?
27th page.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. It's no big deal. I just want to,
Okay, we can make that correction. You know what, if you call, I think Karen did those minutes, Karen Crosby, just have her make that edit.
that's no problem.
I'll mention
Sheila-
it to her.
Okay. Sheila McCrevin
Aye.
and David Vogel.
Aye.
Thank you. All righty then. Wow. Like this all in once. All right. Phew, we have some appointments. We've had a lot of resignations over the last couple months, and we have some appointments to do. It was brought to my attention by Chris Sullivan that she was following the untimely passing of Terry Gilbertson. She was acting zoning enforcement officer and also acting inland wetlands enforcement officer. And I think it's time to make her no longer acting because she's been doing it all that time. So I'll make a motion that we approve Christine Sullivan for the zoning enforcement officer through June 30th, 2023, and also the inland wetlands officer, enforcement officer to June 30th, 2023. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. Joe Crisco.
Aye.
Beth Heller, aye. Paul Kyriakos.
Aye.
David Lober.
Aye.
Sheila McCrevin.
Aye.
And David Vogel.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Just dropped my paper. Sorry, guys. Okay, let's see. We're up to Police Commission. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, we have 2 openings. Let me get my papers here. Okay. The first one is a Police Commission appointment through June 30th, 2023. Sheila, do you have a nomination?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Mika Cardozo.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And Is there any other nomination for that appointment to 2023? Hearing none. Oh,
Hey, wait, no. David, do you have a nomination? I thought we were gonna do Steve Felsig. This is the police?
yeah, there's two of them.
Yeah, there are two.
There are two openings, okay. Because we had a nomination, David. We have Steve Felsigno. Yes?
We do have Steve Falsigno it's in the packet.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't know which of the two terms that the nominating committee had nominated him for.
Okay.
I do know that he has the support of the chair of the police commission.
Okay. I just don't want to get him passed over twice.
Do you want to nominate him now, or you want to wait for the second?
Well, that's up to David. He's in charge of that.
I'm asking.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
I wasn't aware that we had two different time frames. I would prefer to wait for the second one, I suppose.
Okay, all right. So we'll take up the nomination of Luca Cardozo for the appointment of Police Commission through June 30th, 2023. All in favor? Joe Crisco?
Aye.
Beth Heller, aye. Paul Kurikos?
Aye.
David Lober?
Aye.
Sheila McCrevin?
Aye.
And David Vogel?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And God, I got all these pages in here. Okay, the second appointment to the Police Commission is through June 30th, 2025. Sheila, do you have a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Henry Coppell.
There you go.
Thank you. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. That's the first one. And you guys have a nomination?
Yeah, Steve Felsigno.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, with that, we'll take up Hank Coppell. All in favor, Joe Crisco?
Aye.
Beth Heller, aye. Paul Kurikos?
Aye.
David Lober?
Have we satisfied the party requirements for those replacements?
Yes. Hank Coppell is an unaffiliated.
Okay. I'm going to have to vote no.
Okay. Sheila McCrevin?
Aye.
And David Vogel? I'm sorry, you're muted, David.
Right. I'm disappointed that we don't honor the chairman of the police commission, and I vote no.
Thank you. And with that, it passes 4-2, and Hank is appointed to the Police Commission. Next is the Economic Development Commission through June 30th, 2023. To the pages here, I apologize. Sheila, do you have a nomination?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Brian Marazzi.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Do you guys have a nomination? David or David?
David? Do we have a nomination for economic development? I think. I think it's going to be John Paul Garcia.
We had him listed for Gatvock.
Oh, okay. Well,
I don't know how that came in. I apologize. It just says at the top Gatvock. I don't know. I'm sorry. I didn't take it in, so.
My mistake.
No, it's okay. There's a lot of them. We have more to do too next month. So no, right, for economic development?
Apparently not.
Okay, all right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I have in my packet here. Okay, David Vogel for the nomination of Brian Marazzi to Economic Development Commission through June 30th, 2023.
Aye.
Sheila McCrevin,
Aye.
David Lober,
Aye.
Paul Kuriakose,
Aye.
Beth Heller. Aye, sorry, I'm looking for her out there to say aye. And Joe Crisco. Oh boy.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay.
Excellent.
And next is Government Access Television Commission to June 30th, 2023. We do not have a nomination from the nominating committee of the Dems. Do you guys have one?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, David.
Diane Carano.
I'm
I
sorry.
nominate Diane Carano.
For GATVOC?
No, I'm sorry. I nominate John Garcia. I thought we were on the other one. I apologize.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'll second that. Any other nominations? Hearing none, this is Government Access Television Commission, June 30th to 2023. The approval of John Anthony Garcia, Joe Crisco,
Aye.
Beth Heller, aye. Paul Kuriakose,
Aye.
David Lober,
Aye.
Sheila McCrevin,
Aye.
and David Vogel.
Aye.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
I'm sorry, my cloudy memory has just cleared. We had Chris Lynch put up for something, didn't we, David?
No. No.
Okay,
I don't think we forwarded that I know of.
I got a communication from from the nominating committee.
Ah, okay.
I don't know that it came forward to Jerry. I'm sorry. Okay, well, did we do? Guess GATVOC is done, correct? Did I take the vote? Okay,
Yes.
Yes, you did.
so much. Okay. And lastly, we have more for next month too. Stay tuned. Human Services Commission to June 30th, 2023. Sheila, do you have a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Alexandra Sanchez.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Joe. And also, David, do you have a nomination?
Yes, I do. Diane Carano.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, we'll take up Alex Sanchez first. Is let's see. Ooh, Joe Crisco,
Aye.
Beth Heller, aye. Paul Kuriakose,
Aye.
David Lober,
No.
Sheila McCrevin,
Aye.
and David Vogel.
No.
Okay, thank you. And that position is filled. I think that's it for this month. Stay tuned. There's plenty more for next month.
Beth, can you tell me why the alternate position for the inland wetlands wasn't on this?
Yeah, we're not ready. We don't have someone yet. We're in the we ran out of time to do nominations. We just
Well, that's been vacant now since we put the alternate on 2 months ago.
You're correct.
And I've nominated Nick Zito for it both times.
I will make sure that we get that done next month.
Is this just because you don't have a nominee? Because we have had a nominee for 2 months sitting in the
I
wings.
understand.
Very
Yeah.
well qualified by your own admission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and lastly on the list is item 21, executive session pursuant to section 1-206C of the Connecticut General Statutes, security devices related to dispatch, and I would invite into this meeting, I'll make that motion, and I would invite into the meeting Tony Genovese, and I think that's all we need. So is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, and take the roll call on that one. Joe Crisco,
Aye.
Beth Heller, aye. Paul Kuriakose.
Aye.
You have to be there, Paul. You're presenting, so glad you said aye. Thank you. David Lober,
Aye.
Sheila McCrevin,
Aye.
and David Vogel.
Aye.
Thank you. So we are now in executive session. This is just an update. I don't believe there'll be a vote because there's no action is appropriate on this one. So those that want to go back to their homes may.